I'd like to imagine a world where each and every one of us, by chance, could stumble upon an opportunity to earn a living by pursuing our deepest passions. For my guest today, not only did he discover a miraculous hidden talent he didn't even know he possessed, but he also immediately found himself able to turn that talent into a career, earning a living doing what he loves most. Our guest is a figure painter for the world's leading creator and global distributor of top licensed consumer toys, the National Entertainment Collectibles Association, also known as NECA Toys. During our conversation, I learned a wealth of information about the toy manufacturing world, from the inception of ideas to the creation of the toys, all the way through to product distribution and daily back-end operations. It is with great pleasure that I share this knowledge with you all on this episode of the Sauce Talk podcast. This conversation was especially fulfilling for me, as I too have a deep love for toys. So please, without further ado, welcome my guest, figure painter Mike Puzzo. You're now listening to the Sauce Talk podcast. What up, everybody? It's your boy Al Siggity Sauce. Welcome back to the Sauce Talk podcast. Today, I have a very special guest for you all. He's from the National Entertainment Collectibles Association, which you all know as NECA Toys. He is a figure painter. Welcome, my boy, Mikey Puzzo. What's up, baby?
What's up, dude?
How are you?
Good, man. It's good to see you.
Thank you for coming, man. I mean, you know what's bizarre? This is what's really bizarre to me, is that we're so close in age. You know, you grew up in Little Falls, New Jersey. We all live, you know, in the same area. You're friends with my cousin, and I never, ever crossed paths with you. That's absolutely bizarre to me.
As I said, it's funny that meeting you not so long ago, but right away when you meet somebody, you know, you kind of just like click and, you know, everything you're into. The fact being, it's like, how did I not meet this guy or hear about this guy? Yeah. You know what I mean? And then when, you know, your cousin and my boy Vic was like, oh, you got to meet my cousin Al. He's like a great bowler. And we were on like a bowling team. I'm like, oh, is he good? Because we were bowling at the time. And I'm, you know, I play. I'm not great. Not letting alone being like, oh, by the way, he's like a huge NECA fan. You know
Bizarre,
what I mean?
Right? He's actually here today. I don't know. You can't see him on cam, but what up, Vic? How you doing? Yeah, it's fucking bizarre. It's weird because I find that, like, especially now in this time of my life, I meet so many new people and that are all a part of like the same circle or like offshoots, and I've never been able to like figure out like how did we never cross paths. It's truly fucking bizarre. But anyway, you're here now. I'm happy you're here.
I'm stoked.
I was blown away when you came to my house a couple years ago for Gridfest. I don't know if that was 3.0 or whatever. It was one of them. And you came by and, you know, you unleashed the demon on me and told me you worked for NECA.
I mean, the fact that when you found out that I worked for NECA, you were like, no way. But then I'm walking into your house and I've been to this house before.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, where am I? This is like a kid's dream come true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a weird experience, definitely being here for sure. So listen, tell me a little bit about your early years in life, you know. So obviously you grew up in Little Falls, and one thing that I found out about you that was interesting is I had no idea you were half Peruvian, half Italian.
Yes, sir.
Which is, it's close to what I'm a Puerto Rican Italian. Obviously you're not Puerto Rican, you're Peruvian, but still we're both Latino.
Absolutely.
Italian men, you know, which is very, very crazy. So your mother was Peruvian,
Yes, my mother was born in Peru. She's from Lima. She came over when she was 16. Funny story real quick that when she went to Passaic High School, my father was a history teacher there. And, you know, obviously nothing went on there. But at that time, you know, when she graduated high school, 18, she met her husband, you know, I don't even think a year later, they got married. So, you know, It was pretty cool like that. So they were that. And then, you know, my brother, my sister, and then me.
Sick. Do you speak Spanish at all or no?
I pretend to. I can understand it, I could definitely understand it well. Talking, it's like a tourist, like a poquito.
Yeah, I say that shit all the time because I work in public transportation, and I get people all the time. They see me, so when you look at me, either you think I'm Arabic, Italian, which is the majority of what people think, or Hispanic. So the problem is like I don't speak Spanish fluently.
Yeah,
but the little that I do speak, I speak it well. So when I say it, they automatically, he's one of us. I'm like, yo, un poquito. I don't speak it. So it gives me a lot of issues.
I understand that. All the guys in my work, and even through college and stuff. I mean, at a time in my life, I did have a beautiful head of hair.
Oh, yeah, you had a mane?
And I had a beautiful mane at one point. And at that time, people thought I was Hawaiian. Like that kind of, but then I get Arabic sometimes.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
I could say anything. And people be like, yeah, I can see it. But yeah.
I look call exactly that racially ambiguous.
Yes, that's exactly. That was the word. Yeah. I was searching for that word. But if you look at pictures, I look like my father now. When I was a kid, I looked exactly like my mother. So I looked Peruvian. And in the summertime, I have like a completely different color. I get tan. So
let me say this. One thing about Peruvian cuisine is I might be able to consider them the king of flavors.
Okay.
Oh, dude, there's nothing like biting into a lomo saltado, bro.
I make it better than my mother.
Do you?
And she could attest to that.
You never made it for me.
When you're ready, it's the easiest, funnest meal to make, and it's the most delicious thing in the world.
See, I might disagree. I don't know if I would consider it easy.
Why?
Because simplicity takes time, takes tradition.
Well,
just because it's easy to make doesn't mean that
preparation obviously is the key. You know, I mean, you're cooking the meat, but you're not cooking it like you'd be filleting. I don't eat fish, but like a salmon or even like a really, really good ribeye or something. You really got to know. But with lomo saltado, you just want the meat tender. It's not that hard to do. I mean, at least I love to cook. So, I mean, I don't eat.
Flavor of the meat.
I eat like a child. Chicken fingers and French fries.
Is that right?
I'll say, I'll never say no to that. But, when it comes to stuff like that, I like doing it, and then I'll try it. And if it's good, then I'm like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, but I mean, you get a good fucking bowl of chaufa. Oh, how good is that stuff, dude?
Like I said, I'm a picky eater. I don't eat any fish. I don't like any of that stuff. So a lot of Peruvian meals do involve fish.
Yeah.
So I'm not the best go-to guy when it comes to that, but I love Peruvian.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm not really a fish guy either. I mean, once in a blue moon, I'll have a swordfish or a Chilean sea bass. It might make, the baby batter come out into the back of the trousers, but it's not my typical dish that I would like. But if it's done correctly, I mean, I'm all in.
Well, that's when we could dive down that real quick where just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's good.
Correct.
So when you hear like stuff like that, or you go to a restaurant, it's $100 a plate. It's like, yeah, but it could come out like shit. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
So I like that. It's the hole in the wall places that are the best.
Yeah,
because they put time and effort into what they make.
Totally.
So
when you were a kid, due to your current career, which we're going to dive in more later, I would assume that growing up, you were a comic book collector, toy collector, etc. What were you specifically into during those times in each one of those avenues?
I'll go so far as I'll agree. I was definitely a comic collector because of my brother. My brother was big time. He was the one that showed me the way with Marvel, with DC. I was more of a Marvel kid, so I had all those old Mattel, every kind of toy I had. But I was a Turtles guy. I love Turtles. I had everything. I dressed
all the Playmates, right?
All of it. The sewer, the van, the blimp. But I wouldn't go so far as calling myself a collector. I just loved toys.
Gotcha.
I loved playing with toys. I understand as an adult, keeping things nice, keeping it, looking fresh, but I like playing with toys. Even now at 40, like I'll open up a package and I'll get yelled at, but I'm like, I want to play with it. Like I got it for a reason.
Yeah.
I want to see the things about it, the little intricacies, of it,
Yeah, of course. I love toys, man. I don't think I could ever get tired of opening a fresh package or a clamshell or a blister pack. I could never get tired of that. So since you make a living off of your artistic ability, were you always into art on its own growing up? Like, were you drawing? Were you sketching, comic? What were you doing when you were a kid?
Absolutely. I drew all the time, always making up my own characters. I got into, I loved art. My brother was really good. My sister was phenomenal at art. As I got older, I learned my mother loved to draw, and she's really good at it, but she never did it.
Really?
So I always drew. I always wanted to go to art school. Through high school, I was in all the drawing classes. I took 0 period painting class. That was before school.
Wow.
That's how much of a nerd I was.
Yeah.
Before school. I loved it, but I never thought I was good. Like, I liked doing it, but I look at other people and I'm like, man, I'm never going to get on that level. Like, I do it as a hobby and not as thinking it was going to be something I could do as I got older.
You think you were actually discouraged? Or you think that was a little bit of imposter syndrome?
I want to say discouraged, because when I take an interest in something, I'll go to the nines. Like, I got into skateboarding when I was in high school or grammar school.
Yeah.
And I got good. I was risky. I would do a 10 set of stairs. If I fell, I fell. But with drawing, I didn't have the discipline. I didn't draw every day. I just drew when I wanted to, or, when I was a kid. As a kid, you always draw or you're doing stuff, but I never maybe I should keep doing this. I just was like, I like it, but I'm not that good. My friends are better. So I can't, I'll feel bad if I draw something and then he draws something. I'm like, well, mine sucks. So it's like, I don't even want to embarrass myself.
Oh, wow.
So I never really took to that. But like high school, I loved it, but I just knew I'm not getting into art school. I'm not that good. I'm not good.
Well, you thought you weren't that good.
No teacher ever, I got A's, I did good in my art classes, but I saw the guys that were going to art school and I couldn't compare, or at least in my head, I couldn't compare.
So let me ask you this. I want to segue off into something real quick, because there's two things that you just brought up. The first thing is, you mentioned you like skateboarding. Mm-hmm. So I got to know, what kind of decks were you riding?
I did everything. I had from Element. I had the Bone Brigades, all that. I'm in what was it, Spitfire?
The wheels.
I had all. But my problem was, and we've talked about this on our own times, that I'm a very emotional guy. So when I get angry, I get really angry. And I was working at this hot dog place that actually is not too far from here. I worked there all through high school.
Big Daddy's?
Oh, yeah.
Get the fuck. I was just there yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Bro.
I worked there for the original owner, the guy Eddie Bourne. He hired me as a sophomore in high school. I worked there. And side note, when he moved and he wanted to sell the place, he wanted to sell it to me and my dad. But I was like, no, I want to go to this college. So if I went up to Montclair, I would have bought it and it would have been mine.
Wow.
But we decided against it. But anyway, so I was making money. I didn't have rent. I didn't have to pay bills.
Yeah,
I was,
15,
16 years old. So I had money. So anytime I skated and I messed up a trick, I'd break the board. I would just walk up and
you were one of those.
I smashed it every time. I went through 3 boards in 1 week one time. And I would go back to, it was called Division E Skate Shop. It was in Verona.
Come on, bro. That's my guy. I was just talking to him earlier, bro.
I love those dudes.
Dave Dowd's my boy,
I
bro.
used to be there every day. And I remember the one time I went 3 times in 1 week and they're like, what are you doing? And I was like, just give me another one. To a point where I started buying just like blank decks. And then I would design my own stuff. But I knew it was like, it's a cheaper board in a sense.
Yeah.
So if I broke it, I wouldn't feel as bad. Because they were like $60, $70 like a deck.
Yeah, not cheap.
And especially for a 15, 16. I mean, again, I had money, but I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I went through 2 PlayStations because I was playing to get mad. I threw the controller into the machine, not on the floor.
A little bit of a sore loser.
100%. Oh, no, dude. If I'm right there, think about like when we were younger, like Mega Man. Like, that's one of the hardest games in the world. And
oh, my God. So good, though.
you die and you get to start over. And the kids today don't understand. It's like, you die. That's it. Your whole weekend is ruined. You got to go back and do it all. So, but I wrote everything. I loved it. I could tell, like, I didn't like fatter decks.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Now, what's funny is now in skateboarding, the bigger decks, the 8.5s, the 8.25, those are becoming more popular. As opposed to years ago, it was like the skinnier ones were kind of like the wave. But now it seems like the bigger decks are becoming more popular with the youth.
I think the company with Mumford's, their decks were wide.
Oh, yeah.
They were real wide. And I was very uncomfortable with that. I don't know why. I just couldn't do tricks on that.
Yeah.
So,
It was also a time period thing too, because in the 80s and stuff, you had the more fish style decks, and those were rather big. And then, in the 90s, when you had the more concave and they got skinnier, and then people stood away. Only people that were really buying the bigger decks, like the wider ones, were the ones that had big ass fucking goofy feet. But then now it seems like a lot of people are fucking converting to the wider.
I love that.
Paws, the thick.
I feel like it's coming back too,
Yeah,
comics and everything.
Dude, skateboarding now is at such a level that I can't even comprehend. And the Japanese are excelling at such a high fucking
Those
rate.
kids are unreal.
Oh, insane,
Unreal.
dude. The stuff they're doing, it's like, I can't. This is why, this is the problem I have. When people talk basketball, now I'm not a basketball guy at all, by any sense of the meaning. I stopped watching when Jordan played, but there's always that argument, the LeBron Jordan thing. Would Jordan be able to play with LeBron? You could give me every reason out of the book. My main focus in ideology is evolution, and every generation learns from the past, gets better with it, excels, technology increases, all this stuff. Now you could argue the game of basketball being back then was much more of a tougher sport. The rules weren't implemented as tough as they are today. So now it's kind of considered a sissy sport, right? But the fact of the matter is these guys are bigger now,
Yes.
multiple amounts of them. The skills are increased, the technology and the footwork and the sneakers, it's all there. So it's like, I have a hard time arguing with them, because not only am I not a sports guy, I don't know the facts, but I just go based on evolutionary ideology. And I mean, the game evolves, the people, the smarts, the intelligence, it all increases. So how could they not be better now than they were back then?
I want to agree with you. You make a lot of sense saying that, but I still believe when you're good at something and you play it the correct way, that's always going to trump whatever new technology or new things that they're doing. Yes, LeBron is exponentially bigger, faster. I just think Jordan would run circles around him still. In his prime, he just knew the game. He knew 5 steps ahead of what was happening before anything happened. Where LeBron is he's good at the game and he's ready to play and can play. But I think Jordan could look at you and knew exactly how to play you.
Which I agree. But here's another element to throw into this. Now I say this to you all. I'm not a basketball fan. I am not these people. I'm not Shannon Sharp, who's now under fire. I'm not any of these people. So my basketball knowledge goes at arm's length, right?
Same.
But would it be impossible to think the thought that Michael Jordan was that elite in a time when his counterparts and the other basketball players were nowhere even near his level, because he was so mentally there, so physically there, that now with all the knowledge that everybody took on to the next generation, that there's a million Jordans running around in the same playing field when Jordan only had himself? Is that a possibility?
I want to say, yeah. I mean, I look at it this. Anytime you talk about any athlete, but we're obviously focused on basketball right now, is that this kid is going to be the next Jordan. I never hear this kid's going to be the next LeBron or this kid's going to be the next Kobe.
Agreed.
Everybody still goes right back to that because he was who he was. And, the players of today are phenomenal. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I won't take that away, but that's the comparison. That's still the high mark of what we compare,
No, I understand that too. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just entertaining different ideas and planting different seeds. I think about this stuff a lot, and I'm not a sports guy, but I just think about the thought process of humans and where things go and where things are now as opposed to where they were then. And it'd be a different, you can't really ever say because you won't know.
No, you're right. You're right.
But it's just something that's cool. Okay, so the second question that I thought that I was trying to say that I segued off that first question. The second one is, when you were in school and you were doubting yourself, right? What kind of stuff were you into? Were you more of a drawer, a painter, a sketcher, an inker? What was your main bread and butter?
So funny that you mentioned that. We make fun of me and my boys make fun of that all the time. My one friend, specifically my friend Alan, a phenomenal artist. I mean, I think he's one of the greatest artists of today.
Wow.
He was my best friend in high school. So he would help me through class. We'd be bored in history class or something. And he would do this drawing training where he would put a line down the paper. He would draw whatever on one side and give it to me and go, copy it. So I would do that. And then I would do that more and more, but I would see somebody. And, that's where everybody gets inspiration from someone else. But I found out that I was good at mimicking people's styles. I never really had one of my own because I never pursued or pushed myself to draw on my own. I saw somebody else's work and I can literally duplicate it. So I kind of got into that. But he would always make fun of me and be like, bro, you're not a drawer, you're an inker. Because I would always like color his stuff in or do that. So I was like the running gag. But I think that kind of got to me. Not that he did it maliciously, but I was like, yeah, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I'll just do that. I love painting. I loved all my painting classes. I was good at painting, the color theories and, making sure I stayed in the lines, stuff like that. But yeah, drawing, I don't know. I was kind of down on myself about that, but never pushed.
So in other words, you never felt your original work was up to par. You were much better at like freehand drawing and mimicking the work of someone else to a T.
To a T.
But just as far as like the original sprout, it wasn't there. Interesting. And I felt the same way about myself.
And it slowly gets to you. Again, I was never like, man, I suck, I don't want to do this. But I was just like, why try? It's like that lazy mentality where it's like, all right, well, whatever. I'll do something else.
Yeah.
And, high school and a lot of my teachers, I could never draw lifelike. Like I couldn't draw you. I could draw you as a cartoon character. Oh, and I was always about that. But so that was one of the criteria to get into college. If I want to go to art school, I got to do lifelike. So I think that kind of got to me too. And I was like, I can't. So I'm not even going to try.
Oh.
College, I went for film, but I took a lot of art classes. So I minored in art. But those people in my classes were unbelievable. So I'm like, God, man, what am I doing? I'm embarrassing myself here, but I enjoyed it. I love it. I love art. You know what I mean? But
it's interesting you say that because, me knowing what you do now and what we're going to touch on later, all this stuff, like the stuff you're giving me is all making sense. It leads you to where you are. It's almost serendipitous that like you ended up where you are because of these things and these steps and these trials and tribulations that you went through. And also, so you bring up, you went to college for film. You were a film major.
Yes.
You went to Hofstra, right?
Correct.
How long have you been into films and what drove you to actually pursue a career in films? Were you filming stuff prior to you going to school? And what was that like? Because those seeds get planted very early on. So I know you were messing around before.
Yes. So growing up, my father was big time movies. And me and him always kind of clicked on that. Like, again, my brother, my sister, they always did the cool stuff. So I always wanted to do what they did and watch what they watch. But movies, man, my father, he introduced me to Mel Brooks when I was like 4 or 5, maybe.
Wow.
And we grew up in a different generation. I remember I watched The Exorcist when I was like 7. I mean, I was scarred for life. I just watched The Exorcist last year for the first time all the way through because I was so scared of it.
Since you were a kid?
Since I was a kid. I mean, terrified. Wow. Reagan is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen. I mean, it's mental scars. But I watched it and I was like, oh man, this movie's pretty good. But it's not, it's not bad. So it was great. So Mel Brooks, and I don't know, man, it just that, besides being artistic and like playing with toys, but like film, man, I wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be a director. I wanted to do it all like how he did.
Yeah.
His comedy, Three Stooges, it was just, it's magic to me, like all that. And I wanted to do that. So as a kid, we had a camera. I was always making my own movies, making my own films. 8th grade, we're doing this werewolf movie and one of the hotter girls in my class, I'm like, do you want to be in it? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, in this scene, the girl's changing. So like, can we just get like a back shot of you? Like, and it's like, oh my God, she's doing it. Like her bra. Like, but no, I always messed around. I always created a script. I always, I knew how to do that. And I think that's really was the driving force of, all right, don't worry about art school. You want to do this? Let's do that.
When you were filming, were you shooting on Super 8, VHS, or what were you shooting on?
VHS. We had actually the mini cams, which anything I had access to. Like, I didn't ask to like rent anything. I worked with, like Bolexes and stuff when I got to college, but yeah, I didn't have my hands or knew who to talk to get my hands on that kind of stuff.
So when you were at school for Hofstra and you graduated with a film. What was your actual degree?
Yeah, it's a BA in film studies.
What I'm really curious on the type of classes you attended. So obviously you minored in regular art, like you already said before.
A fine arts minor. Yeah.
What was the film classes like? Like I would imagine that they were kind of split up in a structure where they were in tiers or something, like where you'd study film, watch them talk about certain directors and stuff, and then the other ones would be like the actual hands-on stuff.
No, I mean maybe I was taking the wrong classes. Mainly, yeah, what you said in the beginning. A lot of my classes were we watch a movie, we talk about it. You know, this kind of director likes to do this. He likes to do the Dutch angle. He likes to do this. Why is this written this way? Gus Van Sant, redid Psycho. And what did he take from Hitchcock? And I wrote that was my senior thesis. I did on that. But I will tell you, I learned everything I know about filming. Everything I know from film club.
Really?
It was the other kids taught me everything because the teachers I didn't learn. They didn't care.
That makes total sense to me, to be honest.
Professor stuff, and I'm not disrespecting any teachers, but when you're at that level, it's either do the work or don't. I don't care if you fail or you don't. I'm still here. I'm still going to work. So I think it was just like, do you get it or don't you get it? And if you don't got it, then you never will, So they didn't really care, I guess.
Yeah.
But all my friends, and a lot of my friends do a lot of, Hollywood stuff now. They were the ones that taught me everything. Like, hey, Mike, I want you to be in this because you could do a backflip. Can you be that guy? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. But then when I'm not in the scene, I'm standing next to them. Hey man, like, what does that do? What does that do? Like, hey, can you, just like shadow me. So I learned a lot doing that. So like these guys, obviously were smarter and more invested. They did internships. I didn't. I went to college to party.
Yeah, that's another thing. You're a fucking party animal. Yeah. Anybody that knows you knows if you're gonna hang out with Mikey, you're gonna have a fucking party. Yeah, that's for sure.
I definitely enjoy life. I try.
He's gonna show his nipples.
I try. He's
gonna squeeze them. He's gonna ride somebody next to him, preferably a female. He's gonna get on there. He's gonna do some cowboy shit to the thong song, right? No,
that's my soul song. Like, I mean, I can't wait. I'm getting married in about a year.
God bless.
I feel bad for her and the family because if that song comes on, I'm gonna show my true colors.
He's going underneath the fucking dress. He's gonna get lost for 30 minutes.
But it's epic. My life, I think, is more. I do things not to embarrass me or to embarrass my friends. It's for the story.
Yeah,
it's for somebody to be like, you're not going to believe what happened. I never did anything to get myself in trouble. I wasn't a troublemaker. I was stupid and I got in trouble, but I wasn't that kind of guy. But
I gotcha.
I did stupid things.
Yeah, I gotcha.
To make you laugh.
Yeah, that's all. It's good for the health.
That's what it is.
It's good for the health. Let me ask you this. You already mentioned your love for Mel Brooks.
Yes.
Who are some of your other directors that you love? And that you, at the time, aspired to become?
Robert Rodriguez. I mean, not so much like the Shark Boy and Lava Girl, like not the money makers, but like his other films that he did. Like I believe it's Troublemaker Studios. Like I love that. I mean, that to me aspired like the coolest action movies.
Yeah.
I mean Hitchcock. I loved Hitchcock. I'm a big horror guy.
Oh, best.
Off the top of my head, like Fincher. Like the movies that everybody knows we love is good.
Were you ever a David Lynch guy?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Love all his movies.
Yeah, Lynch is my guy.
I'm trying
God
to
rest
think,
his soul.
I'm trying to think. Just recently, I was watching something that had a full debate. I'm sorry, I'm a couple scotches deep. So
now listen, we were drinking a lot tonight. It's good for your health. But yeah, I'm a big Lynch guy. Yeah. When I watch a Lynch film, it's more of an experience. He just takes you to a place and he's able to capture moments that I don't think any director that I've ever watched, even if I don't understand the message he's trying to convey, the point is that I'm experiencing. And that's like something that's kind of difficult for other directors, to put me in that zone, in that place. And that's why I always liked David Lynch, because he really, his scenes, they stay in my mind forever.
That's
a lot of films do, but his is different.
Well, it's funny is, George Lucas. I'm a big Star Wars guy, but a lot of people don't know. I mean, maybe I'm speaking for not everyone, but a lot of people think George Lucas, directed all of them.
No,
he only did like one. He directed, but he was the main brain behind everything, and that's a creator. And I think maybe that's what I focus on more, being the creator than, just saying cut action, that always inspired me.
Yeah, no, totally. Let me ask you one thing. Before we get into your career now, did you ever paint figures and stuff like that when you were a kid? Like, were you a D&D guy? Were you painting miniatures or?
So it's funny. It really is funny how he really did have a big effect in my life growing up. My brother, huge miniature painter. I mean, Warhammer 40K his entire life.
Yeah. How old's your brother in comparison to you?
He is 7 years older than me. So my brother is going to be 48 this year. A master of his art. He's an attorney.
Is he?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, an attorney. He loved working out. I mean, he was like a big muscle guy, but it was so funny that you hang out with him and then he takes you back to the house and there's a whole table full of miniatures. And he was amazing at it, to the point where Wizard magazine,
of course,
published a lot of his stuff.
Really?
And they would ask him, they'd do interviews with him, and then he would go to Time Warp that was over here in Cedar Grove.
Still there.
He would go there and play. And he's like the champ. He would always win.
Really?
Yeah, he was that good. And he built his teams. I mean, you don't realize how much money you spend on that stuff.
Yeah, bro.
And but he was really good. So that inspired me. So I'd always paint with him, and he was really good at it. He was like really good at it. But he just did it as a hobby. And I was like, man, I suck, because I never put that effort into it, and but that was a big inspiration, because he was really good at it. And I never really, they were so small for me, and I was like, how do you do this?
Yeah, they're tiny. It's definitely a separate skill.
Yeah.
Definitely that you need to obtain and learn to do.
But I was, I was young then, I was like in high school, going into college. And then after that, I was just like, I'm not going to I'm going to go out. I'm going to go party.
Yeah. What's funny about that whole culture now is, like, due to the wonderful world of 3D printing, is that now people buy 3D printers for an affordable cost. Whether it's I forget the two different types, but there's this one that looks a lot smoother when it prints. There's one that's like a little more, you see a lot of the lines in it. I don't know if it's resin based or whatever the case may be.
I think it's mainly that.
Right?
Yeah.
But those guys, they're downloading their own. People are 3D sculpting miniatures. People are downloading them or designing them themselves, whether it be through those weird sculpting apps, and they're printing them themselves and painting them themselves. Yep. So it's like the world is totally flipped on its side now.
No, it's like you said, like, I know we were talking about sports and kind of a different thing, but
evolution
today, I mean, anybody could do anything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You know what I mean? And they do that, and people are doing well with that. If you're good at it, there's a market for it.
Yeah. I mean, we're totally living in the DIY era.
Yes.
Totally.
Yes.
Do it yourself. You could literally, like, I'm a product of it. Like, I'm making my own cups and all this shit. The fucking stools back there for my arcade machines, design and manufacture them, do it all yourself, and you don't need the help of nobody. You get direct contact to the factory and you do it all.
YouTube is the greatest thing ever created.
It's unbelievable. It's fucking.
I never grew up. My dad never was like, hey, come help me hammer this thing in. I mean, or use this lug wrench. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? But, hey, babe, and I think we need a deck outside. I was like, I could do this.
Luck.
But go right on YouTube, get this nail, get this wood, make sure it's this. And, a day later, I got a deck in my backyard that I built.
Crazy.
And I'm like, I did that. I could call myself a man now.
Yeah. I mean, retrospectively, you could never imagine that being the case. Like, when we were growing up, like, seeing toys, you'd never think like, oh, I could make one of those one day. It just wasn't even in your imagination. And then now you could literally do it.
Well, I was always like, man, it would be so cool to know how this got made. And I'm like, I'm playing with it because I love it. But it's like, man, I wish I could be there. Like,
exactly.
And this guy looks so cool. And you look at toys then, they weren't that great. But for us at that time, this is the greatest thing ever. It came to life, Like, I saw Batman on the screen. Now I'm holding him in my hand, and that's the coolest thing, And now today, it's insane.
Yeah, it's a totally different. It's a crazy thing how fast technology excelled and just how everything evolved. Yeah. And it's happening every day at such a rapid rate. Like it's hard for the human brain to even fathom at the rate that it's constantly moving and building and evolving. You know what I mean? So before you got into what you do now, what were you doing for work prior?
All right. So I had kind of a wild career of jobs. because again, I went to art school. I mean, I went to film school, graduated with my degree, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm getting out there. I'm gonna be that. And you know, they don't tell you these things, or at least I wasn't listening because I was partying. You know, you got to get an internship. You got to meet people. You got to do this, and I didn't. So I'm walking out of the world and being like, all right, you know, where's Tarantino? Is he going to hire me to be his grip, or you know, be his, you know? And I was just like, how do I get a job? So, you know, friends through friends, I started videographing. I worked for a wedding company, and if you talk to anybody in the video world, that's like the lowest of the low of video. It's a good job, and you do very well because of the amount of money that people spend for this.
But
stuff.
in comparison,
You know, so I started there. Then I was like, why am I working here and giving this guy like 40% of what I'm supposed to get made? So I go, I could do this. So I bought a camera, I bought equipment, I started my own company. And I did a lot. I mean, a lot of my friends at that time now were starting to get married. Like they were young, but you know, hey, Mike, would you want to shoot our wedding? Would you want? I'm like, yeah. Worked on some stuff for friends with music, like music videos. And then at that point, I was like, man, this kind of like it's exhausting, and it's like I'm making good money, but I got into bartending, and
which coincides with your animalistic.
And it tickled all the, you know, it itched all the right spots, you know. So I got really into that. I did the video stuff on the side. I was a cameraman for Fox News for a couple times.
Really,
I freelanced a lot of stuff. Because I was good at it, you know. I had an eye. I don't shake. You know, I had all the right qualifications for.
Was when you were at Fox News? Was that union or
no? As I said, it was like I find all this stuff on Craigslist, freelance jobs, so they just sign you up. But I never got in. I would have loved that. It would have been cool. But again, I like doing it, but I didn't want to be that guy. I want to be, you know, the guy in front or the guy in the ear. You know, like, hey, get this shot. But it was fun. But then bartending. I mean, I was making so much money.
Not only were you making,
and you were consuming
the special juice you like.
You know,
so much.
Hey, Mike. A good rule of thumb as a bartender is don't take everybody home after work. And I'm like, what? You know, she gave me her number. You know. So I fell into that for a long time. I was
you were hiding the fucking bratwurst a little bit.
I mean, it's like, you know, because you know, Mike, if you piss them off, they're not going to come back in, and then their friends aren't going to come back. And I'm like, it's going to be fine. Don't worry about that. I'm a good guy. I'm a nice guy. I let them down easy. You know,
I'm not going to piss them off. I'm going to send them home relieved.
But that's it. Yeah, no. So I was making a lot of money, and I was having fun. You know, and then like my friends would come in. So now I'm hanging out, and even though I'm working, you know, I'm not missing out. You know what I mean? And was doing that for a really long time. And then I woke up at 30 years old, and I was like, I need a job. Like I need insurance. Like if I get hurt, I'm dead, and I'm dead. You know what I mean? Like a medical bill. Like if you break your leg, it's like
the fun's over.
$100,000. Yeah, you know. Bro. So a friend of mine, she asked me to. I was living with her and our two other roommates. She was like, "You're so personable. You're good with people. Why don't you come work for us?" And she worked for Anheuser-Busch, Budweiser. So she was like, "You'd be a great salesman." So I went in, and you know, first day they loved me. They were like, "You're hired." And I did that for a few years, but pay was terrible, and I wasn't enjoying it. You know, I like talking to people, but it's like I don't know. I didn't have like a knack for like the numbers and you know the way that worked, and it wasn't fun. But one of my days, I stopped at a bar, McSwiggin's in Hoboken. And the husband and wife that own it, wonderful people, really nice people. And apparently they were like they're very, very successful. So they one day came to me and they're like, "Hey, Mike, we're starting our own whiskey company." I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." Really? Like they designed it. They made their own whiskey in Ireland, had it, you know, aged and bottled and all that. And they're like, "We want to start selling it. Would you want to work for us?" And I was like, I mean, I would love to, but you know, I'm working for it. They're like, "Whatever you want, we'll do it just so you come work." I was like, "Well, if you double my pay." They're like, "Done." I went in that day and I quit.
Wow.
Walked right in. I was like, "Hey, I'm out." And I started working for them. And it was just us. It was the husband and wife and me in the beginning. So I was doing a lot of stuff that I wasn't used to. Graphic design, never done that a day in my life. And my buddy Alan, again, I bring up, he taught me how to use Photoshop in like an hour.
Wow.
So I learned how to do that. And it was cool. It was a lot of fun, but it was a lot of hard work. But again, staying in the world of partying. So now I'm out and it's like, hey, if you let me buy a bunch of shots for everybody in here and you could buy a case, I could work that deal out. I'll spend, some money here. So I would have parties like every week at different bars and handing out shots to people. Be like, yo, try this out. And it was cool. And then COVID hit and they shut down because they couldn't afford not to be selling and being out. And we were nobody, so the brand just kind of fizzled out. So that kind of sucked. But it was a blessing in disguise. I mean, I feel awful for anything or anybody that suffered during COVID.
Yeah, COVID's rough. It was rough.
I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of lost family members, but for me, it was like awesome because I started working on my art. I was just home. I was bored. I started drawing more. I started, just messing around, doing different materials, doing different things, posting on Instagram. And one of these guys was like, yo, a friend of my brother-in-law who I knew worked at NECA. I just didn't know his title. Like I knew he was big time, but I was like, oh, and I kept asking over the years, like, hey, can I get a sales job? Can I get a sales job? Because that's what I knew, sales. He's like, nah, man, there's no opening, no blah, blah, blah. Hey, easily could have been, I don't want you working here because I'm married to your sister. I don't want to mix worlds. But
so at this point, how long was your brother-in-law married to your sister?
So he was married for, I want to say like almost 10 years, maybe 8 years at that time. Yeah.
So this is your gateway into getting a position at NECA. Basically, the pandemic essentially is what caused your transfer from your previous career to your dream career.
And it's because I was out of a job. It was COVID, COVID started slowing down where people were going back to work.
Yeah.
So he was like, well, why don't you come and help out? And I was like, well, like in the warehouse? He's like, yeah, just like do some stuff for, our buddy of ours that worked there. I was like, great, absolutely. Like I just, whatever I could do to help.
Yeah.
But then one of the artists saw my work and he's like, dude, like, we need somebody. I'm like, dude, I can't do this. I'm not trained for this. And I quote unquote, like kind of interned for like a week and the things that they gave me. And the one senior painter was like, no, you belong here.
Really?
And that was kind of eye opening for me to being like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, you're like good at this. And my brother was like, I didn't know you could do this. And I looked at him and I go, I didn't know you didn't know I couldn't do this. You know what I mean? But that's not something we talk about at like family dinners, like Christmas, like, hey, Mike, can you paint? And I didn't realize he was in charge of the art department.
So you just went there one day, fucking around.
Just to help.
And who was this senior painter that might have been the one thing that caused you to be who you are?
His name is Jeff Trapp.
Hi, Jeff Trapp.
He, I love the kid. I mean, he really, it's been 5 years since I've been there. And he was the reason, like, I am where I am now, getting better, feeling confident, doing my thing, because he was like, yeah, man, like, I can see it. You know what I mean? We're the same age.
That's amazing.
But he's like, you have a knack for it.
Do you remember what you were painting that day?
The first thing I painted was an accessory. And it was from the movie The Thing.
Oh, the best movie.
Yeah,
I mean,
it
come
was
on.
McCready's flamethrower pack, and the flamethrower, and like a few other, like the bottle, an axe, And I'm like, okay, and I know to an outside person, like, oh, it's brown and silver, and it's like, but there's like, when it comes to the lifelike stuff, there's little things that make it look real, and I made it look real. I how it was supposed to look in their eyes. And that's when he was like, yeah, man. Like, obviously it was like, oh, here, just do this. He could have easily taken it from me and be like, let me finish it up. But he's like, no, just like add a little bit more dirt here or something. And I do. And he's like, yeah, perfect. And he got me in.
That fucking Thing accessory you should have framed on your fucking wall.
I mean, I can take stuff now because it's already made. So I can take all the prototypes and bring them home. That's not a bad. I didn't really think of that. I mean, just like to say, I have this.
Frame that.
Well, I will say this.
That shit.
I will say this. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead on you, but we were doing. We had the gargoyles line.
Sick.
And unfortunately, the Gargoyles line kind of faded out, and we kind of gave up the license. But we did a lot of characters that didn't come out, and one of them was the character Cold Stone, and that was the one piece that I did that made me realize that I am good at this. Because when I was done and had a thing, it was put on the cover of Toy Magazine, and I got the cover. Now, obviously there was no recognition, like, oh, done by my Puzzo. And I don't care about that. But the fact that I saw that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, bro.
It was that was eye-opening. Like, I can do this. You
did that.
I did that. And so that was one of the coolest things that I was like, holy shit. I'm still trying to find that. I saw it at a show. I never got a copy of my own.
That's crazy. Let me ask you this before I go any further. When it comes to NECA, right? Did you collect them prior? Or were you a fan prior to working for them or no?
So honestly, my sister, while she was dating her husband, Randy now, but when she was dating him, he got her a job as the photographer. She was the box art toy photographer for a while. So she would always bring home stuff or give me stuff for my birthday or Christmas or something like that, which now I look back and I'm like, oh, you got that for free. Like that wasn't a heartfelt gift now. But so when she would give it to me, I was like, these are awesome because they really focused at that time.
Yeah.
We're talking early, 2000s on mainly horror movies, like, which they still do, but like the real toys, that was like the brand name of that.
Oh, yeah.
I love the horror movies and stuff, but I didn't collect that. I don't know. I just wasn't a horror toy collector or fan. So when I got it, I was like, cool. But yeah, I didn't really, I knew who NECA was, but I didn't because I knew he worked there and she worked there, but I didn't really know what it was.
Yeah.
So
for me, when I've been collecting toys my whole life. I'm 39 now. I've been collecting shit for years. I mean, obviously collecting to a point where keeping stuff in the packaging and shit like that didn't happen until I was a little later. I've been collecting toys since I was like 5. But obviously I didn't do that stuff till I was later, till I had an appreciation for stuff like that. And one of the most significant moments in my life, especially when collecting toys, was I'm a big horror guy. So my first real introduction to horror toys was Todd McFarlane when he announced in I think it was 98. When he announced that he was doing the movie Maniacs stuff. And I was a member of his like fan club where they'd send you like little booklets in the mail and shit like that. And I've told this story a million times. I don't think I've ever told it on here, but my cousin Louis, shout out my cousin Louis. He's a big advocate of this podcast. We always talked about horror movies because we loved them. We'd always said, this is before Freddy vs. Jason came out. This is before that came out. They should do a movie, this and that. He always said that shit, and we always thought about that. And then one day I get something in the mail from the Todd McFarlane, fan club mailing list. And it's the announcement that they're not only because it's coinciding with the movie Freddy vs. Jason, but they're doing a movie Maniac series. And they had a whole Freddy vs. Jason pack and the fishbowl thing and the whole nine. I couldn't fucking believe it. I went ballistic and I told my mother, I'm like, I need every single one. If you remember it might have been the first 2 series, but for sure the first series in general, they did bloody and non-bloody versions. And I made a point I needed both.
Of course.
So that was my introduction to horror movie figures, but this was prior to the year 2000. Then obviously, you got other companies that dabbled in stuff, and then Puppet Master came out shortly after that. I don't know if that was like 99 or 97. Might have been, and you know what? I think it was 97. It might have came before the movie Maniacs. And those figures blew my mind because I think that Medicom is who actually made those figures under the Full Moon license, but they were insane. I mean, I have almost all of them in my house. The articulation of these Puppet Master figures. Now, the movies, was I a big fan of them? They were aesthetically pleasing, but they weren't, as far as like technicalities is concerned. No, they weren't the best movies, but the figures, the characters.
That, though. Those kind of movies you got to appreciate. You know what I mean? They're not made to be Oscar worthy,
Yeah.
but they're like they serve their purpose. You know?
Yeah, and Charles Band did a good job of branding his horrible movies, and he did these Puppet Master toys. At the time, there was no, in my opinion, there was no toy touching them. As far as the quality, they were the perfect size, the articulation, the clothing, the accessories. Like these things were everything to me. And then after that came fucking NECA. Now I believe that NECA started in '97.
Yes,
but they didn't really start making big time toys licenses until 2000 and beyond.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It's hard to even find information on what NECA made between 97 and 2000. I believe I read somewhere that it was rumored that they made like just weird like licensed lamps and shit like that.
Knick-knack stuff.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's what they were like big with that. And I believe that's from what my understanding, the company owner, he was big with that. He knew how to like market things and advertise and stuff. So I think that was his main focus, thinking like that's the kind of stuff people would want.
Yeah.
You know, at bulk production, you know, that stuff like that. So yeah, he was big into that.
Yeah, but I'll never forget because like I said, I like the McFarlane stuff and I collected both first two series and the third and whatever, like I started to like drift away. Because by that time, man, the early 2000s, NECA was really putting their fucking foot in the ground, dude. And they were dropping the real toys, the cult classics. And I was just like, what the fuck? Like, growing up, I was a big horror dude. And you could even ask my cousin Victor sitting to the right of me. There was that ill fucking, I don't think it was called Real Video around by Quick Check.
Oh, yeah.
Dude, you'd walk in there and they had choice, like good quality horror picks.
Absolutely.
I remember going in there, like having a fucking orgasm.
Well,
Like just wow.
Did you go into the back room?
Oh, yeah.
Because then you'll have your real
You're a sick
orgasm.
guy.
No, I always went there and I always rented Dodgeball, the video game for SNES.
best.
They always had it there. That's the only one I ever.
Did you see in my Instagram story this week? I just posted a picture of that and I said
saw
peak
it,
aesthetics. Yeah. Wow, that's fucking funny. But I remember going in there and like getting like real good gem. They had good selection
Absolutely.
there. And you know, just around that time and just seeing that shit and then seeing like them create the stuff that I watched growing up into real life that I could have on my wall or have in my hand and display, I was just blown away. And as far as horror licenses are concerned, nobody is fucking with NECA. Nobody. Absolutely. To this day, the undisputed heavyweight champ of horror toys.
That's a fan right there for you.
I mean, come on. It's the truth.
You're right. No, I mean, you know, I haven't seen anyone. I mean, I'm biased right now because I work for them, but you know, in the comparison, other companies are great at what they do, but when it comes to that, I've never seen anybody surpass the stuff that we pump out.
I mean, you got Mezco. I have Mezco has some really cool even cool hip hop licenses. Mezco did. I love the Mezco Notorious B.I.G. figures. They're very cool, very comical, but very cool, very sought after, very tough to get. I mean, you know, in Super 7, here's the thing what I have with Super 7. Super 7, great licenses, great opportunity. In my opinion, poor execution.
Okay.
When it comes to their 3/4 inch fucking, you know, the Kenner-esque.
Yeah.
Their card backings.
Their reaction toys. Yeah.
The licenses are killer.
Yeah.
But the execution of the sculpts and the quality of the card backings, to say they fall short is an understatement in my opinion. Because you got to remember, I come from the bootleg era of Suck Lord, Retro Band, dudes that were really DKE toy, guys that were doing bootleg figures. You know, obviously they're doing stuff that they don't have the license for, but the quality of the card backing, when I can't even bend it, it's just thick, beautiful card stock, nice print, beautiful blisters, like the kit bashing they were doing, like the stuff that these guys were doing to me was like mind boggling. So then these guys took that idea and hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Because now you have the capital to get such beautiful licensing.
Yeah.
But then now you're putting out a Jay Dilla figure it's my favorite producer of all time. And it's horseshit. If the fucking face looks like Fife Dog.
They missed the dunk.
They missed the dunk. It's not even like they missed everything. Like this guy must have been jerking off. Yeah, let me stop. Because I like Super 7. I don't want to be too much of a dick.
No, but you have a right for your opinion.
Missed the mark.
Yeah. I get it. I've heard that a lot.
But they come out with stuff. Once in a while, I'm like, hey, yo, this is nice. You know what I mean? It's good. Good. Like, especially they just came out. They re-released the MF Doom, the Mad Villain figure. Big, sick. Like, now I'm on board.
Yeah.
So it's not like they totally turn me off. But I'm just really, the reaction stuff, I totally remove myself. The Beavis and Butthead stuff was okay. Like, they come out with stuff. I bought the RZA shit. I got 2 of those. The ODB figure, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
There's one that I saw that I couldn't believe, and all the guys at my work, I was shocked that they didn't know what it was. Do you remember the NES game TNC Surf? Skate and Surf?
Absolutely.
TNC Skate and Surf.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So they came out with I'm gonna mess up his name, the gorilla, and they did one,
So good.
and it was so awesome.
Yeah, it was.
And I went to my coworkers and I'm like, "Yo, this is so sick!" And they're like, "What is that?" I go, "You didn't play TNC Skate? That was one of the hardest games. You know, if you didn't know what you're doing, especially the surfing. But when you got good at it, the game was amazing."
Dude, he's wearing the shades and shit.
And I was like, "This is a cool idea."
Nah,
you know,
that was great.
it's the ideas that people aren't doing, and if you pull it off right, then you got a winner.
Listen, I don't hate Super 7. I have gripes with certain releases.
Oh, trust me. Trust me, I get gripes from a lot of fans, so I get it. I
mean, when they resurrected the Toxic Crusaders line, they did a fantastic job. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like, so it's kind of like with them, I have a roller coaster of emotions where I'm like, oh, I love this. Yes. And then I fucking come down and I get angry and I want to break everything in the vicinity. I want to just destroy everything because I get fucking angry and bitter. But that's just because I'm an emotional Pisces, you know. So that's just how that goes. That's how the cookie crumbles, if you will. Shout out to Truman Show. Was that Truman? Was that? He says the big chocolate sprinkle.
No, isn't that what do you call it?
What is it? Jim Carrey?
When he's like, wait, he's God.
Truman? No, it wasn't.
No. Truman Show is when he's actually
Bruce Almighty. Sorry, too much of this. Big chocolate sprinkle. Bro, when she said that shit, I lost my fucking mind. Oh my God. Absolutely fantastic. But anyway, I got a little nerd question for you. It's nerd time. Because I like details. I like, idiosyncrasies and all that. What are your favorite brushes to use? And I'm not just talking brand. I'm talking type of hair. If you have camel hair, horse hair. I
can honestly, I could stop you right there. Honestly, the brand we use, and it's really sad and unfortunate that I can't tell you what it is. They work.
For certain reasons.
They work.
Cool.
No, just because I'm like,
you just don't know.
So I'm just clueless. Because we order stuff all the time, and it's like I could tell you the certain paints we use because it works better on that resin, but then other paints could be just as fine. But it's like you put in your brain, this is what we use. This is all we're going to use. So I could tell you, Craftsman, Deco, all these paints that we use. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's the paint. But honestly, I never was. It's just like anything else. I could be talking out of my ass here. I've used different brushes at home, different brushes at work, and it all seems to work. I guess it's like if you play golf with Tiger Woods, he can use a shake and a rake and a shovel and kick the shit out of us. You know what I mean? So I think it's you more than the materials.
Totally. No. I'm not saying I don't agree with you. I find interest in the things that the average people don't find interest in, and I like to just learn about them. So that's the only reason, because I know certain people have certain preferences with certain. Yeah. There's animal hairs that you brush on.
You caught me in the spotlight here. I don't have a clue.
Oh, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
It makes you look bad because it's like, oh, this is the fucking guy that's making it. She doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
No, it's not.
But, no, I mean, I never really thought of that. I never been like, oh man, what is this? Oh, it's finally 4 horsehair or whatever,
Well, no, I'm just I told you, I'm a different animal, sick fuck. I'm going to ask you a lot of these questions.
I mean, I literally just broke out in a sweat right now because you caught me right dead in the spotlight. Any of the guys that I work with, everything were like, did you just fucking embarrass us like that? You don't know. I'm like, hey man, you guys never told me this shit, Prime example, this is off story, but this is how, I don't know, what am I looking for? Optimistically dumb or simple. I was working.
Listen, I get you.
I was working the bar the other day, and I'm not a political guy in any way. I'm working the bar the other day on St. Patty's Day, And I'm taking a picture with my coworkers, and this guy standing next to me smiling, and I'm thinking it's my boss's friend or cousin. I'm getting texts an hour later. Oh, yo, I can't believe you were taking a picture with him. I go, who? And they're like, the governor. I go, who? They go, Governor Murphy. I go,
he was there?
The gangly tooth guy that was up there. Like, you don't know? And I'm like, you could have put a line up there. I would have had no idea who the hell that was.
Listen, gangly tooth is the best shit you could ever said because he looks like the fucking Crypt Keeper.
But I just, you know what I mean? Like when I'm doing stuff, I don't think that far ahead. I'm just in that moment, especially when it comes to painting and stuff. I'm there to do my work. You know what I mean?
There's a beauty in that.
So I don't think, those things, but.
No, I'm just sick. So tell me about the paint itself. Mm-hmm. You told me, obviously, in the past that you mainly use acrylics.
Yes.
But is there a particular brand that not only you personally like, or is there some sort of like guideline that NECA just uses religiously? Like you have to use this paint, nothing else. Or do you have liberties to pick what you like yourself?
Okay, so I grew up with my brother doing the miniatures and stuff. So we used Citadel. That was the only paint I knew that you were used for the plastic miniatures and all that. Citadel paint. They had the wild silvers, metallics, and stuff like that. So that's all really the things I knew. School, we had whatever, back of the store paints, because it was cheap for the school to get.
Yeah.
But always acrylics. And I won't lie, I never really dabbled with oils. I mean, I did, but I didn't know what I was doing with those. Again, my focus my entire life was I'm not that good, so I'm not going to try.
Yeah, of course.
With work, my senior painter, Jeff, is like, these are the ones we use. Craftsman, Deco, they're the best ones. But every so often, he'll order a wildly new, different one. He goes, try this out. And, we'll try it. It'll work. It doesn't work. It's just, there's really no set standard. But if we do, it's Craftsman's. It's all stuff that we can get at Hobby Lobby or Michael's.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So really there's no definitive, this is the paint to use for the best. You know what I mean?
So if you wanted to, and there was a particular paint that you enjoy working with, it wouldn't be impossible for you to approach Randy, your boss, and tell him, look, I really like working with this paint for X and Y reasons. Could we order this so I could use from this point forth?
So I hope I'm not speaking too bluntly against him, which I'm not. He's so good with direction and what he sees and what he likes and what it should look like. But Randy's not an artist. He never was.
Yeah.
So our senior painter and our other painter, John, they're professionals, they know. So it's more them that they know what works better or what's more cost efficient or stuff like that. Randy's like, hey man, whatever works, go for it. He gives us the leeway and the freedom to be like, hey, whatever gets the job done, great.
Okay.
He's very cool with that. He's not I guess the term like a helicopter boss. He's not ever hovering. It's, hey Randy. I'm usually like, hey Randy, can you come out of the office and check it out? And I'll admit this. I've always been like this. I'm a gold star guy. Like I need that. You did a good job. I need that pat on the back.
Yeah. My
entire life. Even if we, at the end of this, I'm gonna be like, Al, how did I do? And you're gonna be like, yeah, man, you were great. I need that reassurance. So yeah, he just, if we do a good job, he's like, yo, this is awesome. But many times he'll be like, Mike, this is awesome. And Jeff will come over and be like, you gotta fix that line a little bit. So it's, to the untrained eye, things look great, but to guys who, do it professional or know what it should look like, that's when they'll nitpick.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Like any other job, take like a graphic designer. You go to a guy or company, you design a poster for them, the people are going to be like, oh my God, this is amazing, because they don't know how to do it. But if you talk to another person, another graphic designer, they're going to be like, it's a little off focus. I mean, it's a little crooked, or that is not the right color. You know what I mean? So,
And what's funny about that is that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because you could incorporate jealousy into that. You could incorporate resentment. There's a lot of things that opinions are a very fine line. And especially when you're working in, I'm not saying that your people do that. I would assume, because I met them all, that they do this within your best interest. Yeah. I'm just speaking on life experience, and there's a fine line, because there's people that can share their opinions because they're fucking jealous and they didn't do it better and they want to fuck you up, or they don't want to see you better. There's many things. I'm not saying that to you guys. I'm just speaking because this is me.
Probably gonna get in trouble for this. So obviously I've only been there for 5 years, and my senior painter, Jeff, my mentor, he is definitely my mentor. He's shown me a lot of tricks of the trade.
That's the one I met at Incubus. Yes. What up, my boy?
So now I mainly do all the turtles stuff because it's just, it's better to stay in a lane. If you're in that zone and you're doing that repetitively, you're like, all right, you want it to look like that one, so let the guy that made it do that, because
you're in a groove.
Another artist could do something differently. But again, going back to the way I was when I was younger, is I watched Jeff paint and I watched John paint and I see what they did. So I mimic how they do it. But the thing with, everyone has their own little thing. So I think now I'm starting to get into my groove where I have my little signature thing. Nothing like crazy. I don't like put like a certain line in it and then always like, oh, that's a Puzzo. You know what I mean? But there has been times where I'll do something and my brand manager, Trevor Zammit, he's a big turtles guy. I mean, this guy knows, he's an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to turtles. And he likes them painted this way, or like I know what he's thinking before he tells me now, after all this time. Jeff is so good at what he does, but it's at a point where he's kind of like, I'm going to do it this way because it'll look cool. But then Trevor will be like, nah, I don't want it like that. I want it like this. So I'm better at taking direction and being like, Mike, paint this blue, put this here, put that there. And I do it. Where Jeff is like, no, I think it'll look cool like this. And, 50% of the time, he's right. I mean, oh man, this thing looks amazing because the way he did it. But other times it's, you got a studio or a company that's like, no, I want it like this, No,
but that makes perfect sense with what you told me before, your whole career, how you were better at, freehand copying somebody else's work. All that stuff that incorporates with you taking direction. All that stuff makes perfect fucking sense. So that's...
And what's cool is I'm known now at work where, we're diving into the whole world now, digital painting, digital sculpt, we're still the only company that pretty much freehand sculpts a lot of our stuff.
I have questions regarding that, but no, you can still finish.
I'm a speed worker that I do it in a quicker amount of time now. Like when we need something, Jeff or John will be like, let Mike do it. Because if we need it, like then, because I'll get through it. I zone out when I'm at work. You know what I mean? Where their ability is so good that they take chances, and it's like 9 times out of 10 it works. Me, I'm still kind of like, what do I do? Do I put the color here or should I not? And I question myself. Where they just like, we're gonna do it and it'll work. So for me, it's like I know what the studio wants or this guy wants. I'm like, boom, boom, boom.
Interesting.
So.
I actually had a question about that later, but I'll ask it now since we're on the subject. I wanted to know what kind of liberties you're able to take, because I'll give you an example. So I collect, or I used to more than I do now, a lot of Japanese underground kaiju figures. Stuff that's like very niche, very tough to obtain, lottery-based, winnings to be able to get it. You might get a figure, and if you win the lottery, there's only 3 made. You might pay $400 for it, but it's worth fucking 10 grand, that type shit. And there's one artist that, God rest his soul, he's a big inspiration to me for a lot that I do in life, whether it's I'm making toys, anything, because I can't even describe to you the level of perfection, the level of uniqueness, the level of genius that this guy, and his name was Shigeru Arai, and I'm probably mispronouncing that because I'm not Japanese, but Shigeru-san was, and I was fortunate enough to communicate with him a couple years before he passed.
That's one of those races that you can't tell that you are. It's the one that you got to leave it.
Right? And this guy took chances. He was the punk rock of the Japanese kaiju scene. This guy did what he wanted, how he wanted to, and in the way he wanted to. And that alone was so inspiring to me that I translated a lot of how he moved through life within my little things that I like to do. And I was fortunate enough to be friendly with him before he passed. I was able to collaborate with him and make some enamel pins that represented his toys and his artwork. And it was a very difficult process. Me in general, I'm a difficult guy to deal with because I'm very detail oriented and I like things done a certain way. And he was me times to an unreasonable level above me. Like pulling my fucking hair. Like what? Like in the drop of a dime, he would change plans, right? But that was a part of his genius. Like, he was fucked up in the head and he had a lot of vices, and that was a part of what he did. But when you received one of his toys in your hand, why am I paying $800 for this at retail price, right? You get it and you're like, oh,
That's why.
that's why. Because there's 100 fucking layers of paint in this goddamn thing. The base color vinyl was lime green, but you see none of it. But he figures out a way to make that color shine. And it's just like, I'm undermining what he really was. I can't describe it. And he's no longer here. And what's even more sad is I no longer have his toys anymore. I ran into some financial situations at a point and I sold them all. And I made a goddamn shit ton of money. I'm talking toys I paid $800 for, selling for 16 grand.
Jeez.
And I regret it. But the fact is that I got to collaborate with him, that I got to see his genius. But there's one thing that was always a rumor around the kaiju world, the Sofubi world, that was unique. And I don't know if this was true, but since he would do such low amount of lottery numbers, they would say he paints the eyes a certain way so that he could tell them apart later on and he knows who he sold it to. Now, I don't know how true that was. Anyway, I say that to say, we talk about painting styles and you having like a particular style in which you paint. Is there ever anything that, like your signature, that you put on a prototype paint that nobody knows but you?
No, I mean, as of now, no. I don't think I have the balls to do that. I don't want to say that other painters don't, because I don't know, but maybe they do. I've never discussed this with my other guys. I don't see why I wouldn't or couldn't, but I think because of where NECA is, we do it to the T.
Uh-huh.
This is what Kurt Russell looks like. And again, this obviously goes from the start. I mean, the sculptors get the most credit, I think. I mean, I wouldn't be able to bring the figure to life with the paint if it wasn't for the sculptor to make it look as great as they do. So I got to give them credit for that. But I mean, like I said, like I can't put a little, like a P on the boot, and people are like, yo, you got to look for that and find it, because I feel like our guys that look at it at the end before it gets, made, produced, they look at it with a fine tooth comb. And it's like, all right, the boot is supposed to have a scratch mark on the left side. Why is there this on the right side? So I think if I tried to try something like that,
they would know.
Yeah, I think not to be like, hey, asshole, why are you doing that? But it's like, that's not on the boot. It shouldn't be there. But
okay, that makes sense. It's a different industry.
I will say this. I'll keep you in mind the next time I'm painting something. I'll be like, let me try to get away with this and see what happens.
That'd be cool, right? I have a really cool question for you. So What does it feel like for you personally to do a paint application on a toy, right? And have it reach the end of a production line and your application gets replicated in the factory, which is what happens when you hand in your custom painted prototypes, and it's sold into the homes of many Americans, many worldwide for that matter. That must be the most surreal, insane experience on the planet. And like I said before, that when you came in here, I didn't realize until like this week that I didn't realize that NECA, put the people who were involved in the production of the toy, as far as the director, which would be Randy, and the painter, the sculptor, the whole. I had no idea that they even put that on the packaging. It's like hunting for producer liner notes in a record, and that's kind of the culture he's contributing to. Randy, shout out Randy. And I didn't know that happened. What does that feel like for you?
Well, as I said, I'm 100. No, let's not lie. Let's say 95% that I believe we are the only company that does that.
Wow.
Because, the developers and Randy and everybody in there, wants to give credit where, I don't mean to blow, smoke up my own ass, but like to give credit where credit is due, you know, like I'm not looking for praise. Obviously, like my entire life, I always wanted to be, famous, I wanted to be in movies and people, but it's not so much that things are out there and I'll know, in 40 years, some kid picks up a turtle toy and is like, oh, painted by Mike Puzzo. I'm like, that's cool. I find it cooler when my own friends will text me a picture because they're at a comic book store or Target or Walmart, and they send me the picture and they're like, yo, and I'm like, that's cool. Like, I'm like, yo, that's cool. Like,
damn, I want to cry right now. I'm kind of emotional. That's so sick.
Yeah, it's a good feeling, man. And you know what? Like, I won't lie. Like, I'd be lying if I said like when we're at Comic-Con or something, and a real heavy fan is like, on my thing it says Mike Puzzo, and I'm just working for NECA. I'm there to help. And one of the other guys is like, yo, he painted that, and then the guy freaks out. And I'm like, man, he's like, oh my God, it's amazing. And that's just cool, just to kind of relate. So and I'm not trying to sound like that, arrogant, but it's pretty cool to be like, sick, I made that dude's day just by saying what's up.
That's fire.
And it's like, who the hell am I? I'm just a painter at a toy company. Like, I'm not, and this guy's like, I own every toy. This one was the best one, and I can't believe you painted that. I'm like, well, it's a good job. It's my job, but
I get emotional, man.
It's cool though, man. I'm an avid. I'm the same way, man. I freak out when I see celebrities and stuff. I'm starstruck all the time.
Yeah,
and it's like the weirdest people. It's like, oh man, oh my God, that's the girl from Ladybugs. They're like, what? I'm like, no, not the main girl. And people are like, what are you talking about? How do you know that? And I'm like, because I'm passionate. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
So when I see fans out there that, it's cool. It's cool to make a kid's day or something.
That's so sick. Speaking of making a kid's day, I gotta share with you my mental thoughts on when I finally, fortunately, a couple of weeks back, got to visit you in your environment. I gotta say, man, it was kind of life-changing. It's weird to say that, but I was telling my wife, like, yo, I'm finally going to NECA's studios. And I never knew that it was really in Jersey. Like I said, I wasn't really reading the packaging, where it's coming from. So I didn't really, I never cared about that. I was just all into the toys. But when I finally got to go there, I drive by and I'm expecting like this big NECA billboard, but it didn't surprise me that there wasn't there.
It's a very unassuming building.
Hillside, New Jersey. I actually parked in the wrong building initially. It was I guess where you keep most of the stock.
Like our warehouse. That's more like the sales office, but that's like our warehouse. Yeah.
Okay. So I parked there. Obviously I texted you, I'm on the wrong spot parking in the place, and walking in there, it's just, to the listeners and viewers, I don't even know how to describe it. Because if you're a person who loves this stuff from the outside, and you love toys, and you love just you love holding these things that you hold dear, because they represent more than just toys to you. They represent life. They represent times in your life that you experienced, you can recall when you saw said movie or said cartoon or said TV show, and you recall all these moments and you bring back, and all this nostalgia rushes in when you hold a simple toy. It's more than just a package and a material item. And when I go into a place that this stuff is created in, it kind of hit me like in a weird spiritual way. I just looked around and it's just everything that I love I'm 39 years old. Since I was a kid, it's like, this is where this stuff is created. Now, obviously it's only one specific company, but the fact that I got to sit there because of you and see it, like I wanted to cry. I left there driving home like I was just at NECA. Like I spent thousands of dollars buying toys from this place. And because of my cousin introducing me to somebody who by chance got a job, didn't even know about this talent that he had, discovers this talent, gets a job at the place because his brother-in-law is the fucking head honcho there. Walks in there, finds his new talent, spends years cooking up savagery in there, and I get to just walk in there after all this time passed and just get to see this fucking outcome. It was fucking crazy for me. I'm not even like describing it right to you, and I wanted to flick away, but I knew to respect the environment. And I'm like, I don't need to take pictures because I lived it. And to see where all this happened, I got to meet your fucking boss. And even though we said 5 words to each other, 5 fucking words, and at glance, Randy, I'm sorry, but I know people will see you and think you're a dick, but I knew you weren't. I just knew you were a seasoned veteran that been there, done that, and you're continuing doing that. And I was like, this is a motherfucker that has a plethora of knowledge, a plethora of experience. And this is just like the most grandiose thing that I could ever experience. And being there because of you made my fucking day. It made my year. It probably made a good chunk of my life. So I just want to thank you for letting me get to experience that.
Well, I can't tell you enough how awesome the way you feel. I'm getting a little choked up right now saying that. But
dude.
I'll tell you right now, I'm gonna play a reverse Uno card on you. When I got to meet you, when your cousin brought me here and he's like, yo, Mike, calls me Puzzo, we're gonna go by my cousin's house. You're not gonna believe what he has. You remember the game, the grid. He has these parties, like these people come from all over to come play. And I'm like, cool, man. I was like, just as long as I'm okay to come. He's like, yeah, no, come. And you were like, yo, you work at NECA? Bro, my God. I mean, you talked to me like I was like a fucking celebrity. And I'm like,
you are.
And that, to me, was the coolest moment that I had because I'm like, dude, I just came here to hang out with you, your Vince's cousin, like, and then you're like, yo, man, blah, blah. So to me, it was an honor to say, hey, man, come down anytime. Doors open for you. Because A, you're my boy, but B, you're a fan. And I love my job. I love toys. I love what I do. I'm not even close to the level of passionate with these things as you are. So to do that was the coolest thing.
Oh, dude.
To have you come in and just, the look in your eyes being like, holy shit. Now, mind you, I'm there every day.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, it's cool. And I love my office. I mean, it's a little messy, but, it's a busy office. But to watch you do, it's that to me that's the win.
No,
to watch you come in to see,
the best.
So.
I needed that. I don't want it to die. I came home. I told my wife, I'm like, I can't believe where I just went today. Because when I came home, she wasn't home. She works. I work. We have opposite schedules. Sucks, but I came home at night. I came home at 11:30. I'm like, listen, bro, I finally went there. How was it? I said, it's fucking crazy. It's like I didn't even like I told you, I didn't even get to flick off like I wanted to because I have respect for. I don't need to take pictures. I was like, wow, to see everything like. I would kill to be in that place every day. And I make good money. I have a good job, good benefits, but I'm not fucking happy. That place made me happy, made me question what the fuck am I doing with my life? Really, going there like opened up a totally new door for me.
My father said this to me my entire life. You know, you can do whatever you want, be whatever you want. He was never, you know, he was disappointed that none of us got into education. He was a teacher, vice principal, principal, you know, his entire life, you know, whatever.
It's not for everybody,
50-year
bro.
career. None of us wanted to do it. We were all artists. We were all, I mean, my brother ended up becoming an attorney.
Creatives,
but my sister, we're all creative people. But he told me, just know this, that a job is not a job if you love going to it.
Well put.
And I didn't understand that. Like, I was like, yeah, okay, like I get if you like the job, but I've had jobs, you know, and I, you know, bartending. I mean, it was, to me, it was always side work, you know, it's just an extra thing, but I enjoyed it because I'm partying all the time, having fun, meeting people, meeting, you know, girls, all that. I had my other jobs and they were cool. And, you know, I got to go here, I get free things here, or I, you know, I meet people. I didn't like go in there and I'm like, I got to do this again. The last 5 years, and I give full credit also to my fiance, you know, to my stepdaughter. The last 5 years have been unbelievable because of them, but a lot contributes because of this job. I love going to work every day. I hate mornings. I don't like waking up.
So do I.
But when I walk in there, I'm not going to work. I hang out. I get to do what I love to do. I get to paint, and then I can chill out, listen to music all day, have conversations with everybody there, and the day goes by every day. And 5 years like that gone. And I don't mean it in a negative way, just because it didn't feel like 5 years. And it's awesome. And the stuff we do is awesome. And
it's the best.
Yeah, it's a good feeling because I'm happy. You know, I've never had stress. What, like, you know, women stress us out.
Forget about it.
But I've never really had stress, you know, to the levels of like, you know, going to a doctor or pain or something.
Yeah.
You know, I got headaches and, you know, but because I never really took things too seriously.
Yeah.
This is even less. It even makes it less stressful in my life, you know, dealing with the fiance or dealing with this.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, it's
the best.
It's its own party going there. You know what I mean? Just to hang out and talk nerd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was the best to go there and even to meet like the rest of the painters. And even, you know what was crazy? I said one word to this fucking guy, but I want to meet this guy, the fucking photographer.
Yeah, Steve.
When you introduced me to that guy and he had his own office and his own place where all the pictures that we all follow on Instagram for the NECA online, and when we go to the NECA club and we purchase toys, he photographed these things. And like to see him, I've been watching them photos for years. And to meet the guy that actually does that shit was so crazy to me.
He's wild.
I want to know that guy.
He's wild.
Like, I want to know what cereal he eats.
He's a wildly talented man. Just like
Sick.
the little things that go into that you don't realize. You know, like you'll see a picture and you'd be like, oh, that's so cool, like the smoke effect. No, he's got like a can of like fake smoke.
Of course.
He's doing it. And then he's got it's the talent that he has is unreal.
You got to remember, like I said, even though I'm not in certain industries, everything in the world interests me. So I always look into how things are made, how things are done. So me meeting him, I already knew the work it entailed. And that made me love him even more. I'm like, oh, this is the fucking guy. Like, this guy should be getting his cock blown when he walks in at 10 a.m. every day, have somebody under his desk making that noise. Because that's important. He needs that.
But I think it's, you know, we were just talking about this earlier, you know, the post-nut clarity. I think he needs to retain all that to get the creative juices. And then when he gets home, then you
get it. When you retain it, it
gets you, it keeps your drive going, you know.
It's extreme.
I'll say this, though. One of the funniest parts about our office is meeting me, you know, the way I am. But in that office, it's like a hype because, like, I'm the toughest guy in the office because I'm a nerd and I work in an office of nerds. But I could walk in there and make a joke and be like, hey, Puzzo, what are you doing this week? And I'll be like, hey, fuck you. I'm drinking. That's what I do. It's like, well, you got to go. It's hilarious, man. It's like,
No,
I feel so
you're
much
definitely the
cooler.
oddball out of all of them, for sure.
I'm like them, but like they're just like they live vicariously through me for the stories that I tell. I mean, like I'm not doing anything, but it's like, oh, yo, me and my boy Vic, man, we drank a bottle of Jameson in like an hour and a half, and then we were just playing video. And we went to this bar, and people were like, "What?" They're like, "I was in bed at 9 o'clock."
Straight savagery, dude.
Yeah, no, it's fun, man. It's a diverse group of people, but we all just are the same. You know what I mean?
Best.
That's
I loved it, dude. That was. I want to go back.
I told you the door's always open for you.
I have to.
Door's always open for you.
Spend more time next time.
I agree. And like I said, you come in on a Friday, it's more relaxed, and we'll have a little fun.
I'll come in on a Friday soon. So one thing that I really want to know that I'm interested in is, if you could, I would like you to walk me through a typical day at NECA for you. I mean, what's the workflow like? Is there tight deadlines? What's your routine? Give me the whole kit and caboodle.
Okay, so honestly, I think by adding me to the roster then, it did take a lot of weight off them because there was only 2 guys painting. And there was a lot. We pump out a lot. And the hardest part is getting things produced in a timely fashion. But, there's those discrepancies. This didn't work. We got to redo this. Or, where we ship it to in China, like the factory, maybe something going on, so it can't get made. It's a lot of waiting time. But when it comes to us, by me jumping on, it takes the burden off them for the other work. So I'm an extra hand. So I'll come into work. There's usually, something always available, always ready to go. Like if I finish one thing, I'm not sitting around going, hey, do we have anything else printed out? There's always something, whether it be turtles or whether it be a new horror figure or, whatever. There's always something to do. But for me, I come in, I have my stuff ready to go. As of deadlines, I have never been in a situation where, hey, Mike, all right, well, I'm lying. Comic-Con time. We're always showing off something new.
Exclusives.
So it's tough because I'm doing work that needs to get done, but then our brand manager, our sculptor will be like, we want to show this off then, and it's 2 weeks before Comic-Con. In the beginning, when I first started, it took me a few days to do a figure. 2-3 days. And I have to do 2 copies. We always have to do 2 copies. One for us and one we ship to China to get mass produced. So we always have one to look at when they send us.
When they send you the picture of the sample before they even send it to you?
Not even a picture. They'll send us a deco. It's what's called a deco figure where they painted. And now I have to sit and look and see if they did everything that I did.
Compare and contrast. That makes perfect sense.
A lot of the times, colors a little off.
Of course they are.
A lot of the times, the lines are a little smudgy, and it's the way the game is.
It's all fine tuning.
Exactly. So I would look at it, make my notes, send to my manager or to my head guy, and then he'll talk to them, or I send it to one of our chief guys, and then they fix it, and then they'll send us another one a day or 2 later, and then I'm like, okay, it's good to go. But on a normal day, I'm in, get my paints, get my water, set up, pop my headphones on, and depending on how I feel that day. Do I want to listen to music, very chill music, hip hop, rock, or dive right into Netflix or something and binge watch an entire season of something? But something I've seen before because I'm working. So I'm, up, down, but a very relaxed office. No one's up your ass. No one is hovering over you. Just, dude, just get in your flow. Or we'll sit and have debates. I'll have arguments with my coworkers about shit because being 40 years old, I'm in my ways. And I work with a couple younger guys. I work with a couple guys that are very political, and the debates get hot. And I'm the louder one, so I'm the one that I start screaming and, yelling, but we're still working, we're still there just to, there's nobody ever bothering us, what I mean? But deadlines, I think because of me on board, other than Comic-Con time, nah, It's just try to get it done in a timely fashion, and we have plenty to do. I've done pieces 2 years ago that are just coming out now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because there's no urgency on it. Some of them are, some of them are not. You know? So
Yeah, I would assume it's all situational and shit like that.
Exactly. And especially like if we're doing a horror figure or something, a figure of a movie that's coming out or something.
That's different.
Clearly we want that on time. When that comes in, we want that because, you want to be first to market with all that stuff,
So you kind of said, like in the beginning, it took you like 3 days to do a figure.
Yeah.
So nowadays, typically, what's the rundown on like how long does it take you to typically paint a figure?
Obviously, depending on the figures. Now, obviously, you've seen with like the turtle line, there's multiple levels in the turtles. There's the cartoons, there's the Mirage comic turtles, there's the real, the movie turtle, all that. So,
too many.
Like a cartoon turtle in the beginning, I'm nervous. I don't know. It took me like a day or 2 days, 3 days. Now I can pump one out in a day, half a day.
Wow.
I can knock it out. And then, but again, if it's a simpler figure, then no problem. But if it has a little bit more detailing and stuff, all right. But I move quickly and I feel comfortable. I used to ask a lot of questions, and I understood that in a job like this, you're going to get it wrong if you don't ask questions. So it's better to play that card of being like, hey man, just tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, can I bother you again? But now I'm comfortable where I don't ask questions. And a lot of times it does get me into trouble because I'm like, I thought that was a good idea. And the one line in my entire life is I always assume things. But when you assume things, you make an ass of you and me.
Yes, agreed.
So, but now I'm comfortable. I really do something and I'm like, yeah, let's get it taking pictures instead of saying, hey, can you check my work?
Yeah.
But I think that's just more of me feeling confident, you know what I mean? And he trusts me enough to be like, yeah, I don't need to, handheld you the whole way.
Yeah.
So
let me ask you this. So I just out of curiosity, I would assume that when you get a prototype printed or whatever, sculpted, you get the whole whatever that you have to paint. I would assume that it's in a gray base and you're adding to it.
Yes.
Yeah. And that would be due to, because it's the easiest base to, it's basically like it's already primed before you even touch it. Right?
Yeah. Well, so when, back when we were younger, I was always taught with the miniatures and stuff, you have to base coat it or you have to spray it with a primer. You always had to use a primer. Maybe then to today that the plastic from the 3D sculpting machines, all that plastic's a little bit better, so it holds paint, so you don't need a primer. I never do. I never prime anything. I just paint right away, and it.
Okay.
Now, mind you, maybe it's the type of paint. That's why he tells me, get Craftsman, get Deco. That paint holds better. Maybe that's why. I just think that those plastics then didn't hold paint as well as plastics like today. So we'll get a figure gray, sometimes obviously they're translucent. So then that you have to, you do like your sprays or something so that you can see through, you know what I mean? But
yeah, the only reason why I asked is because like I'm not an artist particularly. But I used to mess around, but I was more of like a pencil shading drawing. And I did the same thing as you. Like I was good at copying. I wasn't good at like original thought. Mm-hmm. But I dabbled in graffiti. Graffiti is like one of my favorite art forms on planet Earth. That's like my bread and butter. I love. You see, I post that shit all the time. And in that world, there's differences in paints, and paint companies really matter. Like when you're sitting there grabbing a can of Krylon or Rusto, but then you get a Montana or a Belton, and there's really a level of difference in not only in the way it coats, but the way it sits before it drips, or whatever the case may be, how creamy it is and how it absorbs and whatever because everything has pores, whether it's paper, brick, cement, everything has an absorption rate.
And the consistency of the stuff. Yeah. Exactly.
Which would correlate to 3D prints and resin and how how everything is absorbed. So that's the only reason why I asked is like, that's why I asked before, like what kind of level of paint you're using, what company, because all the absorption rates, all that shit matters on how your artwork is perceived.
Well, the biggest thing I think is I'm the kind of guy that like will go to ShopRite and I'll buy the ShopRite brand. But there's a lot of things that aren't good because they're the base level.
There's levels. Yeah.
So when it comes to paint, a crappier paint, won't hold. That's why we won't buy it. You can buy it for your kids, like those little, paint by number things for the kids. If I try to use that paint on a figure, it won't hold. It'll take me 20 layers to get that color to look like that color.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we use a good standard, but it's just, a better quality. Obviously, you're going to get better results, but
yeah.
I don't always necessarily think more expensive things means better, but
Gotcha.
There's a lot of expensive stuff out there, but some of it's very unnecessary.
Yeah. As long as you know as the artist if it's good or not.
Yeah.
That's all that matters. I have a question for you, and you might have an answer for it, you might not, right? Because
see, now you're trying to set it up because I'll make myself look like an asshole again now.
No, because the question that I have is definitely rather niche, and since you got into the figure painting game 5 years ago, I would assume you wouldn't have an answer for this, but you never know. So that's why I wanted to ask: is there any in the industry that you're currently in? Who are some of the figure painters that you find inspirational? But like, again, you're fairly new into the scene, so you might not have an answer for that.
I honestly don't. And that's
especially since they don't print like you guys do.
No, and that's the embarrassing thing that, again, maybe because I'm not, hey, I collect. I have, all my Marvels, all my DC stuff. Like,
but you don't know who the fuck painted this shit.
I know Hasbro did it. I know, McFarlane does it. I know that. And that's embarrassing, but I can guarantee that, a collector of NECA that works at Mattel or something, they don't know that I'm the painter. Maybe I'm wrong, but not that I don't want to know. But I just don't know, or I don't, I guess, take the time to find out.
Yeah.
I respect every single guy's out there because there is a lot of companies, like a lot of Mondo stuff, a lot of the applications are phenomenal.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not great, but the same thing that could be said about us. Some of our figures might not be the greatest thing, but all those guys all these guys are all talented. Just to be in this world.
There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like I said, I never knew until this week that I didn't realize that you guys printed on your, otherwise, how am I going to fucking know?
Yeah.
So that obviously, if you're just like me, a collector, and you just got into the industry, half a decade ago, how are you going to know who painted this shit? Unless you're like, a hyper, incel.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're 100% right. No, I meet these guys at the cons and stuff like that, but, there's never been something where I'm like, oh my God, like I need to know this guy. You know what I mean? But again, the same level of, I guarantee there's thousands of people out there that they don't care that I painted. They just like NECA. It's like NECA. I'm a fan of NECA, and it's like I'm a fan of that. I'm a fan of that.
What about when you're painting original pieces or just when you're painting in general? Is there anybody like Frazetta or somebody that you always looked up to when you painted or did original art?
Well, I guess obviously going to art, like trying to do fine arts in college and high school and all that, you learn the big names, Dali, Van Gogh and all that. But, those kind of things I didn't draw like that or I didn't paint like that. But, I have a tattoo on my body that it was off a album cover of one of my favorite bands. I was a big 2006 guy, so the band Him.
Oh, Him's sick, dude. Ready?
I have.
I love your skin.
Oh, the best.
Oh, so white.
The best thing the best thing about that band is when we make jokes. Because I watched that. I was a big Bam Margera fan. Unfortunately, what's going on with him now? But is you could say anything, and it'll sound like a Hymn song, like I live in the world of your love, but the bat wings that fly me to the moon. Like, you know what I mean? You could say anything, and it sounds like. So with that said, one of their album covers was an artist, Alphonse Muka.
Mook.
And
straight mook.
And he does this really cool design of like mostly women and like long flowing hair, but their face is a little distorted. And I always liked that. He was a kind of an inspiration. So the way he painted, very linear, like drawing like that. So I kind of try to do that, but no, I just
fucking sick, dude.
So I do my own, but I try to do my own, like just I feel comfortable doing it this way, so I'm going to do it that way, you know?
I didn't expect that because one of my boys that comes here is a big grid player. My boy Joe Hop. He loves him. I love your skin. We always talk about that song. We love that song.
It was a little bit too much where I was wearing like the chain and like the cut off gloves. You know, it was bad. And I, skating. Shit. So, but like all my boys, my other boy, me and Vic's both boys, always like, yeah, Puzzo's from 2006.
The best.
2006 to like 2008 was my time to shine. And a full head of hair.
The best.
Skating, yeah.
The best. So I'm kind of curious when it comes to like painting prototypes and stuff like that. Are you provided with like a lot of reference photos, or do you take a lot of liberties yourself, or do you have to do your own research regarding painting the prototype?
So no, so we have a team of guys, or our brand managers. He's in charge of finding any kind of reference for us, whether it be a comic book for like the Mirage designs,
yeah,
and I'm just mainly talking Turtles right now, just because it's the easiest one to talk about like that. If we're doing cartoon Turtles, we will go to the episode, take snips from it to show. So what a lot of people don't understand, but I mean, it's fairly obvious, is that I will look at the image and then figure out how do I get that color. And that comes into a lot of it where you want to just be able to grab one color paint, use that for the pants, but the pant might have like a grayish tint to it or something. So for like the Turtles, it's very flat colors. So I may have to mix colors, and I have to know. And that's where kind of having an art background, how to mix colors, how to blend colors. You got to know what colors make what colors, the color wheel, very, back old, the original way of learning art is through the color wheel and stuff. But, I mean, a lot of it's that. And then again, a lot of it's trial and error. I could paint something, throw a wash on it to make it look like a denim, because, how do you make denim through paint? But, there's a way.
Dude.
But the coolest thing about painting, especially painting figures or painting anything, but painting figures with acrylics, is if you screw up, just paint over it.
Yeah.
And I was always so nervous in the beginning. I'm like, oh man, like I painted outside the hip. Now it's touching the stomach. Like, how do I get to, and I'm like, what am I doing? When I get to the stomach, I'm just going to paint over it. And
that's a good point.
Yeah, there's really trial and error, but there's really no way of really screwing up. You know what I mean? Because if you screw up, you just paint over it.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh man, you're fine lines. And yes, absolutely, get the 000 paintbrush, and you got to go in there and put the one line out. But if the line comes out too thick, just take whatever color that pant leg is and fix it up.
Yeah, you could just paint over it.
Just paint over it.
Wow.
A lot of people get like, oh, it's like, nah, just paint over it. You screw up, you paint over it.
Let me ask you this. This is a very interesting question to me. When it comes to painting prototypes, right? I want to talk about difficulty. Okay. And me personally, being a spectator from the outside looking in, I want to ask you which sculpts, in your opinion, are the most difficult to paint. And in my observation, I would imagine the task that you already have, which is painting turtles, the more simplistic, smoother surfaces would be the hardest to paint, because you can hide a lot of mistakes in the hyper detailed, let's say, horror sculpts of Freddy Krueger that has lots of grooves, lots of heights and recesses and stuff like that in the sculpt. I would imagine that would be easier to paint, because you can hide the mistakes as far as something that requires more of a smooth surface.
Yes. Yeah. No, there's a lot of room for error when it comes to more of a simple paint job. Because, yeah, it's a flat color, but then we put the detailing lines in. But if you screw up a detailing line, but you don't see it at that moment, later, they do basically, when we send it, they do what, the way I paint is, they do what they see. This is how you painted it. This is how we're going to paint it.
It stands out a lot easier.
So if I screw up and not realize it, they're going to do that screw up.
Yeah.
And then they'll send it back, and I'm like, why the hell is that there? And it's like, oh, Mike, did you paint it that way? I'm like, no, I sent him this way. And then I realize, and then they'll send a picture and be like, no, you painted it like that. And it's like, oh, I screwed up. Yeah, the more detailing stuff, you can hide a lot of stuff. You know, again, you want it to look as real as possible. Like Freddy Krueger, more of the things that have blood, or you have to make it look real, flesh. You know, you got to make it look as real as you possibly can. But if the color, you know, like a darker red, and you screw up, but at the end, maybe it actually looks better. It's kind of like, oh, a mistake, but it actually works out in your benefit.
Yeah.
You know,
like I said, just me observing, I would imagine that a more detailed 3D sculpt with all these different valleys, highs and lows, and just super hyper detail would be a lot easier to paint because of the ability to hide the shading, the details. Whereas something that's a turtle, let's say it's a regular turtle that has a very smooth snout, very smooth mouth, everything, you gotta be on point, because if you do one little fuck up, you could see it. It stands out like a sore thumb.
Say you're putting, say, let's just, Michelangelo in one of his head figures is smiling. And on the cartoon turtles and stuff, we have to put a definition line to break the color. Now, say I do it, and at the end, it's a little thicker. My brush slides a little bit, and it's a little thicker. I have to redo that whole thing because it's not as defined. But the harder part with the more lifelike stuff is what I've learned through the guys that I work with. Yeah, it's a mask, it's a fictional thing, but how do I get the eye color to look like a real eye? So I have to look up actual eyes, like Google eyes, and then see, like, it's not just flesh color. You know, we look at each other, we see like, oh, it's just like a flesh color, but no. You got to remember there's blood vessels. There's stuff in here that, your blood is actually blue, you know what I mean? But with the red, when it hits oxygen, and you got to really know that it's not that color. It's always a little bit, different. Wow. So, I think that's what separates us from a lot of other companies is that, I'm not saying they don't, but we're very, to the point of what it has to look like. What a real thing looks like, because we want to make it as real as possible.
No, I always understood that, and that's why I'm a fan of NECA, because of the hyper attention to detail, to the realisticness of the sculpts, of the paint apps, like all that stuff to me matters. Let me ask you this: have you ever painted any dioramas or accessory sets that NECA has put out?
Yes, and I'll say this. I'll take full credit for this. I did all the sewer dioramas, like the lab, the kitchen area, and like that. Obviously with a lot of help from my coworkers. Obviously they're there with me, but I got to do those dioramas. No, I haven't really gotten to do any of that kind of stuff. We usually we don't really do it in house, like the dioramas at least. We kind of outsource that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's not that a lot of the guys don't do that. I mean, like the Universal Monsters, one of our chief painters, our senior painters, John Wardell, he did a lot of the diorama stuff like that. So, it's there, but it's something that we don't focus on as much. I mean, again, people who do our dioramas are unbelievable.
Oh, sick, dude.
But we don't really have too many set pieces like that. But like the turtles, we did that in house. Like I did all those, stuff like that.
Oh, dope. How long, this is kind of it might be above your pay grade, but how long does it typically take for an entire collection to get made, completed from the initial idea to then the approval of the licensee, to then the sculpt, then the paint app, sample approval, package design, manufacturing, the whole nine? How long does it typically take for a collection to get made?
Well, when you say collection, do you mean just like a figure or like a whole line?
I guess I want to say a whole line, because whenever you guys release a figure, it usually typically is a collection, meaning like, I'm not saying you did this. Let's say Halloween H2O. You're going to do a 5-figure set based on that movie, right?
Okay.
So let's say Pee Wee Herman, for an example.
Okay.
You guys did the Pee Wee Herman a couple years back. So you did an ultimate Pee Wee figure. You did the head knockers with the fucking, the whole thing. So I guess, maybe both. If you can give me both, the collection as well as like maybe if you're releasing one ultimate figure, because sometimes you guys revisit old licenses and just do one ultimate figure on it. So I'm talking about, I guess, overall concept.
Again, that, as I said before, it really depends on the urgency. If something's coming out and we want it to drop when that significant, say movie or show comes out, we want that to go align. So we would be first to market that, hey, this came out, NECA's got their figure. But honestly, it really depends. A concept could come months ago, a year ago, but now we're finally putting it into production. So now the sculptor is going to do it. And the sculptor could take up to, a couple days to a month to get us a figure. Once it lands to us, then, if it's hand sculpted, it's there. But if we digital, digital's faster, a couple days, and then we paint. And as I said, if, like a Turtles or something, I could do it in 2 days. We ship it, and then it depends on the factory. So honestly, I don't want to give you a definitive answer because it could take 2 months, or it could take, as I said, I painted stuff 2 years ago that just came out now. You know what I mean? So
are you printing the digital sculpts in-house?
Yes.
Wow.
We have our fabricators there that they're the guys that fine tune it. So when we get the print, the sculptor sends them that. He'll look at it, and then if there's things that the sculptor didn't see, like, maybe there's like a little nick in it, like on the sculpt, he'll go there and he'll figure it out. Or after it's printed, he'll clip it out, he'll smooth it out, make sure there's no problem. So when I paint it, there's nothing there that, why is that there? Like, why did the paint go into that crevice or something? You know what I mean? So, everybody is as integral as anybody else in that office. There's not one man, you know what I mean?
Do you know how much blood's flowing to the tip of my penis right now? No, I wish I could tell you I'm bullshitting. Dude, I gotta meet the 3D printers, bro. What building was that?
No,
in?
you met him. He was there. The one guy, Roger, with the big beard. He was sitting on the other
That's the
side.
3D printer?
Him, and then the guy, Anthony, in the corner, he actually now does the printing and fabricating, but now he's also sculpting some of the stuff that goes. He does like a lot of the accessory stuff for now, because he just learned how to digital sculpt within the last year or two, and the stuff is phenomenal that he prints out now. So everything is done in-house.
Dude, I gotta watch the process.
Wow, I mean, I can tell that you know your stuff. You know how long it takes to print some of this stuff?
But I want to see it for real. I don't want to just think about it. I
It's
want to
cool.
go there and watch
It's
like
cool.
this.
I got to watch. We have one of our sculptors, a guy named Thomas Gwynn, phenomenal sculptor. He did
Shout out Tommy boy.
He did like the RoboCop, and he does a lot of our stuff. And
Dick's hard.
He comes up. He lives down south, but he comes up, spends a week or two with us, and I watch him on the computer digitally sculpt, and you get a ball of clay.
Does he use Z-Sculpt? What is he using?
ZBrush.
Oh, that's it. That's
ZBrush.
it. ZBrush.
And-
ZBrush is phenomenal.
And the way that these guys do these things, it's
he uses
unbelievable.
ZBrush.
It blows my mind because you get a ball of clay.
I know how it goes down. Watch.
And watching him turn that into a full-on face of someone.
Dude, I watch time lapses and just go like this.
It's unreal. It's unreal. It's awesome. It's
that's it.
it's an art,
ZBrush.
man.
I forgot the name. ZBrush.
That's one of them. There's multiple.
Yeah, there's many.
But I feel that's the main one that we use.
Dude, I gotta I need to spend more time there because I love this little, I like this shit. The details, they matter to me more than anything. I love the process. It's like the shit that gets me up in the morning is knowing how this stuff was made. It's like whatever.
It's
anyway,
cool. It's cool, man. It's really cool.
I need more. I need to revisit the Randy Falk. I gotta come by. Randy, please. You know what I mean?
Nah, it's a lot of fun, man. And like I said, man, there's no one man. Like
it's a team of individuals.
love that people are like, oh, you painted that, but I'm like, dude, I'm at the end of that line. It's you, the sculptor, the guy who came up with the idea. Like, how should his face look? Should we do a smiling face? Should we do, the part in this movie where he's kind of looking down? Or, you know what I mean? It's those little things, those little intricacies that,
That's what I mean. That's why, like, I love film just like you do. Yeah. But I really love documentaries because I love to see. For instance, I'll give you a quick segue. I went to audio school because I wanted to be a music producer. It didn't happen because there's many reasons, but you have to intern, and it's very difficult because you have to work for free, and I couldn't afford to at the time. So that kind of that side of my life left me. But when I was in school, if you remember that Cher song, "Do You Believe in Love?" Okay, so she uses auto-tune in that, and she's kind of...
Get out of here.
Oh, But, I mean, in that song, that was done by a mistake.
Because I know T-Pain doesn't use it.
Oh, no.
No, that's his legit.
Yeah, he don't use that.
Sorry, guys.
But that was done. That basically set off that trend, in other words, is that Cher song, because... it was done as a mistake to correct, because autotune originally was used to correct vocals, not to use them as an aesthetic, as a style. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And that fucking mistake happened, and they liked it, so they kept it. And the reason why I know that is because one of my teachers in my audio school was involved in that session somehow, and he told me that story.
That's pretty funny.
And that set off a whole trend of autotune. If you go back, that kind of started the whole thing.
I didn't know that.
And if I would have never had that class, if I would have never heard my teachers speak about that, which is the same thing as documentaries. If you don't watch them, you don't hear what goes on behind the scenes, how many mistakes happen and go into the final product. And that's why I enjoy hearing about the process. And that's why, like, I'm asking you these highly detailed questions that either are above your pay grade or at your pay grade, or just in general, a little too detailed for the public eye to really care for or realize. Because of that shit is you find stuff out that nobody would ever know.
Yeah.
But the fact that you know it happened because of that just gets, I'm telling you, blood rush to the tip. It just hard rock. Like, I'm talking Rushmore rock. That's hard.
I will say this. I agree, because I love documentaries. The best one I saw, I was blown away by this because I am one of the biggest fans of South Park. Oh. And there's a great documentary called 6 Days to Air.
Haven't seen it.
It's on HBO Max, so you need to watch it.
Oh.
And basically watching these guys who are beyond genius. They come up with their ideas, and if it works, they make themselves laughs, they make it. But then there's times where they have no idea what to do, and they're panicking. Wow. And day by day, we got to get this episode out. We got to get this up. And then they'll create something 2 days before it airs. And then they put it on. They're like, oh, it sucks. Sick. And it's the greatest episode.
I love that shit. I love hearing that shit. Hearing that shit makes me fucking... I like to know when stuff like that happens. That's why I ask the questions I ask. You can understand now why.
Of course. No, I mean, you're a plethora of knowledge.
That's
like
just fun.
You're learning things, and then you retain it, and now you just know shit that, No,
dude, I watched I'll do a segue real quick. I watched the craziest documentary a couple weeks ago. Dude, I turned away a couple of times because it was that crazy, but it was such an interesting story. So have you ever seen Hated by Gigi Allen? I mean, it's not by Gigi Allen, it's by Todd Phillips, who is the person that created Joker. The movie Joker. So this guy created Frat House.
I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
You were saying that with like passion in it. Did you actually like that movie?
What, Hated by Gigi Allen?
No. Joker.
The original one?
Yeah.
It was pretty fun. It was fun. You didn't like it?
Dude, I got Joker.
I didn't see the second one.
Oh my God. I almost threw up. I hated the first one. And I'm not taking away Joaquin Phoenix, phenomenal actor. Todd Phillips, hey, Hangover, great. Stay in your lane. Don't reach out. Don't try to be art. I love the Joker. I am obsessed. But
you didn't like the movie.
It's sick. To the obsession I have. I have a whole Vic can tell you. I have a whole wall dedicated with every toy that the Joker's made, pictures, paintings. That I'm obsessed. He's one of my favorite characters in history, in literature. Forget comic literature.
Really?
He ruined that character.
Wow.
Ruined that character.
I don't really know what to say.
It's not good.
Wow.
You're telling me, I'm sorry, I'm going off the rails here.
Do it.
He ruined that character. Wow. You're telling me society made you that way? No, the Joker was fucked up. And yeah, everything that happened prior to the Red Hood and all that, but come on, man. Society didn't do that. You're making this character weak, feeble, like, oh man, everybody picks on me. Stop it.
Well, I'm gonna give you
you're like hurting my feelings right now. Like,
no, I'm gonna have to give you background now so that you understand my point of view.
Yeah.
I love comic books, but I don't read them or collect them.
Okay.
So my perception on comic book characters is gonna be vastly different from yours.
All right. Yeah. Fair enough.
Mine's more surface level.
Okay.
So watching that movie standalone, on its own, I thought it was a great piece.
Okay.
Standalone.
And I've gotten into debates with friends that are just as comic book nerdy as I am. And they're like, oh, it was a great movie. It should get an Oscar. And I'm like, fine. He's a great actor.
Oh, sick.
It's a wonderful movie. Call it something else.
But it's not accurate.
Call it something else. Call it clown. Call it, whatever. Don't call it the Joker.
Okay. I feel that. I feel that.
That's my only thing because the character's so iconic. The character has so many levels besides his insanity and his ruthlessness and things that he does. Like Heath Ledger played it unbelievable.
Oh my God.
Jack Nicholson, unbelievable.
Oh, Jack's the best, dude.
That was the Joker. This was not for me. I get hot when people bring up the Joker. I mean, your cousin will tell you. I've got many arguments about this. So I stand firmly. I despise that movie. And the second one's even worse.
Listen, I appreciate your opinion. I'm sure the second one is an abomination.
You can't even put a word for it.
I'm just speaking on this guy.
Yes, okay.
Todd Phillips.
Yes.
How he filmed those documentaries, captured some crazy. He did a documentary called Frat House. I don't know if you ever saw it. Watch it. It's shocking. Parental advisory, the whole nine. Like it was banned from HBO. It was an HBO documentary. Never showed it. It never aired.
I didn't know that.
So you got to be in the know to watch it. He goes from doing the Hated by Gigi Allen documentary, and then does Joker. It's like weird, It's kind of like Sam Raimi does fucking Intruder, does all these weird movies, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and then he goes and does Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Same kind of level of like, whoa, what the fuck? Like Peter Jackson doing Bad Taste, Dead Alive, aka Brain Dead, and then going and doing fucking,
Lord of the Rings, yeah.
Exactly. Same kind of thing. He did Hated by Gigi Allen. I mean, not by, Hated based on Gigi Allen.
Yep.
Now, this documentary that I watched is based on a guy that makes Gigi Allen look like Sesame Street. And that's kind of crazy to say.
Because he was wild, to say the least. Yeah.
Ruthless. And I'm so goddamn drunk, I can't remember the fucking name of the documentary to tell you. But it was based on a guy that I can't even remember his name. Okay, I got it. Edwin Borsheim. So if you remember his name and you look up documentary, I forget the fucking name. Dead Hand something. I'm sorry. I apologize. But we had many drinks tonight. But I watched this documentary and I was like, listen, I'm not even into death metal. I'm not into that style of music. But the point I'm trying to make here after this giant, like, elongated, grandiose fucking explanation is that I just love learning. And those stories really interest me. And when I watch this thing, this guy's a sadomasochist, anti-religion, like, dude. And like, you watch the first hour of this documentary and you're like, I can't believe people like this in real life exist. But then when I watched that last 45 minutes, I kind of felt bad for the guy because I got to realize, hear his childhood, hear how he grew up, hear everything. But the thing is, I would have never known this stuff if you would have just gave me his DVD based on Kettle Cadaver. So he was a part of a band called Kettle Cadaver. Okay. This is like a crazy death metal band, and this guy he was a sadomasochist, so he would pin his balls to his foreskin, to his stomach. Fucking, I'm talking thorns on his head like Jesus Christ. Come out on stage with his fucking upper lip pinned to his temple and perform that way. Really brutally mutilating his body. Like, I had to turn away many times. And then when you hear these testimonials of him personally explaining to you his thought on the world and how life is and all this stuff, it's excruciatingly shocking. And you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? Like, I can't believe people like this exist. And then you hear later on in the documentary how he grew up, how his mother was, all this stuff. And you're like, oh, it makes sense. And it's fucked up to say that this guy had a heart. He really did. It's just that he grew up in the wrong circumstances. And everything in life really, really comes down to how you were brought up. The childhood dictates how you will become in life, whether you completely reject the ideologies you were spoon-fed when you were growing up, or if you align with them. It's going to dictate how you grow up, whether you're going to be like your dad or against your
Monsters are created.
Bingo.
You know, they're just not there.
Bingo.
Well, one of the best lines, and I'm sorry, I have to just say this real quick, is how you couldn't remember the name or the documentary, but you fully remember to use the word grandiose.
Oh, yeah.
It's the only thing that was going to my head. I was like, that word he has no problem throwing out there, but he's like, I can't remember this documentary that I love. But one of the best quotes, or not quotes, I guess, yeah, it was a quote. The Joker said, we stopped looking for monsters under our bed when we realized they were in the mirror.
Bro, the goosebumps that are going from here to here down to the tip right now are insane, you know? Bro.
So
that's a quote.
And, you know, and that's what I mean. Like, so I get it. But like you said, monsters are created. You know, that guy.
Yeah. Like I said, if you watch this documentary, and I know you're going to want to see it after this.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean,
I'm telling you, it's phenomenal. You know, the way the directors really depicted his life, bro. I don't want to dive too much into it, but it really affected me. I've told my family about it. After I watched it, I was just so mesmerized that his view on life, like, this is so fucked up. And like the other people that he viewed, but it's like he's just a product of his environment and where he grew up in, and, you know, how he came from overseas and his father died and came over here, had a stepdad that was really abusive, like the whole thing, and it all contributes to who he became as a man.
As a person,
but what's funny is how fucked up he was. But I could still see through all and wade through all that craziness and see he actually had a heart, which can correlate to many people, many serial killers, they all, you know, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer to some people was a nice guy. Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, was a nice guy.
He was a family man. He took care of his kids. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, you can't be that. I mean, there are that evil people out there, but at some point, somewhere inside there's something good. You know.
But you got to watch this. Edwin Borsheim. He was a very interesting man, and it's a shocking documentary, especially when they go into his home and you see where he lived and the torture devices that were hanging all over his house and how dark it was and how listen, this guy was fucked up. I know we went on like a super tangent.
Well, everyone has their own vices, you know?
Yeah, but it was wild. It was wild to see it. It's very recent in my brain. That's why I'm able to tell. Besides the name of the fucking documentary, I couldn't dead hand something. I don't know. At least I know the guy. The band is Kettle Cadaver. Edwin Borsheim is the artist, but I can't remember the name of the documentary. It was done very well, though. Anyway, I already asked you about the dioramas. We already went through the collection. Here's one thing that I'm interested in is quality control. To me, quality control is something that not only is very crucial in the process of releasing a product, but it's also something that's the most difficulty to get a handle on. I'm curious if you're able to know this information. What's the quality control process like for the operations at NECA? Because I know, because I released my own custom-made product, right? Like I told you, I have a side business, Pinhead Co. I've made toys, cassette tapes, shit like that. And when I get stuff in, sometimes I'll, throw 30 pins away because they had paint in the wrong spots or this and that. So that all pertains to quality control, right? So within NECA, if you're able to explain to me, if you have recollection or knowledge of this, what is the quality control process like?
Well, given that we, obviously, like you said, we send our prototype, we get Deco back to look at it to make sure that everything is correct. Then okay, everybody says okay. I mean, a chain of commands, a chain of people. Yes. We
Mass production after that.
We have to all agree this is what it should look like. Now, when they mass produce it and they send it packaged and everything, there's really nothing you can do about it. At that point,
besides looking at them, this is good, this is bad. But what I want to know is what's the level of quality control within the warehouse? If you even know.
Yeah, I mean,
you might not.
It's not that I don't know. It's just that, as I said, like once it's packaged, unless it's like missing pieces, which tends to happen.
Of course.
And they're good at making sure breaking up, but there's just not enough people to really look. We're basically getting it all, putting in the warehouse, and then it just gets shipped. So they have a watchful eye on it. But just sometimes there's nothing you can do about it. If one out of 700 in these boxes is screwed up, you would hope that somebody catches it and puts an eye on it. But at that point, it's in the package, it's all done. I mean, it is what it is.
No, it's hard. I was just curious if you had like a specific person or something that would like keep a close watch on quality control.
Unfortunately, not like that. No, I mean, they're there and, they're boxed up, but there's always problems, and sometimes I'm not blaming anybody specific. It's just, you miss it,
Maybe you should create a role. Somebody like me could come in on a Saturday and do quality control.
I agree. But, yeah, but then you need somebody on top of them.
Yeah,
I'm not trying to sound like I'm not trying to sound like an asshole. I don't want to say the wrong thing and just be like, but just
I'm just bugging with you.
I know, but you know what I mean. This is another hotspot moment where I'm like, I'm gonna say the wrong.
Tell you the
thing.
truth, I like saying
I'm gonna say the wrong.
I just
thing.
like saying I think that's really what it is.
Yeah.
No, but on a serious note, like I told you, I've made like bullshit for my little side gig, and I made plushies, and that was a fucking nightmare. I'll show you them before you leave, and they're over there. People buying my website, I look at them, I test them, I'm like, damn, fuck, I gotta eat that cost. I'm throwing it out, put a new one in, it's like, I was just curious on the quality control process, if you had like a specific department, and if you didn't, maybe I could help you out.
We do, but like I said, I mean, the best way without hurting myself here is like, people are human, man. People make mistakes. And
listen, mistakes are gonna happen, but if you have a good eye, dude, if you have a laser sharp eye, you can be like, oh, listen, the fucking dot on this guy's iris is too much. Get the fuck out of here. Put it in my trunk. Let me give you a new one.
I think you're saying it from a customer standpoint. As an owner of a business,
it's different.
That's money that you're throwing away.
Yeah. I'm sick.
No, I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
But, it's like that costs to make. It costs to, we need to sell it.
Yeah.
You're just hoping it goes to somebody that doesn't notice it.
I know.
No, but you're not wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you anyway. Because, as we said earlier, at the end of the day, after everything is said and done, the artists ourselves, we get a chance to sample. We get ones of our own. 50-50. I'm grabbing one that the eyeball is just a little bit askew.
That's going to happen.
And it sucks. And I'm like, I don't want this one, but there's no more left. So now I'm stuck with it. But mind you, I'll fix it. I'll paint it,
Yeah. Well, not everybody's as lucky as you are.
That's what I mean. But yeah, it happens.
No, there's nothing you could do, especially when you're mass producing. Listen, I'm just kidding. Like my scale when I make stuff is on such a small scale that it's easier for me to like fix those issues when you're dealing with thousands of product.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not going to be that. I'm just kidding.
No,
I'm just busting
but
balls.
you're not wrong. That's
Yeah, but I'm busting balls too.
I get it.
At the same time.
I get it. That's fucking guy.
I'm busted because I know it's harder to nip in the butt at such a grand scale.
And you got to think too. It's like you got to pay somebody for that. Then you got to pay somebody else, and it's more costs. You know what I mean?
That's the main purpose of me asking that.
Cost.
I was just curious if there was a person specifically paid to correct that issue. That's all.
On my pay grade, there may be. I don't know. And if there is, I don't know their name. So,
okay. Well, that's why I got to talk to Randy.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things, detailed questions. I just want to know from my own so I can sleep good at night. You know
I mean, you're not
I'm
wrong.
hitting my mic. All right. Anyway, now, if I'm also correct when it comes to regarding the painting of prototypes, we're in 2025. And there's a lot of companies that have totally, completely converted to the digital era.
Yes.
NECA is one of those companies that still has people like yourself, which is a blessing, physically painting prototypes. But there's a lot of companies, if not almost all of them, that are digitally painting prototypes, handing in either their digital files or paper references, whatever it is. You're one of the only companies that is still painting prototypes by hand. Do you ever see NECA converting? And if not, why?
So we are digital painting as well, but we are the only company that's still hand sculpting and hand painting. So there's still, I guess a niche for that we still have, but we are digital painting. A lot of our stuff is digitally done. But the fact that our guys, our painters that are digital, they're that good that, you almost can't tell the difference, So
what percentage could you say confidently, just hypothetically speaking, of the amount of product that you put out, what percentage is digital painted versus hand painted?
Right now?
Yeah.
I would confidently say 70-30 hand paint to digital, but we're getting there. We're learning.
That's good.
We're learning. I mean, the guys in my office they're doing it and they're doing it well, but we all pretty much started doing it within the last year or two.
So when you say confidently, I would hypothetically assume that you mean eventually you're going to completely convert to digital.
I don't think we want to, but I think at this point, we don't want to be late in the game or in the race. Because in all due respect, digital paint, you're working at a quicker pace.
Yeah, which would hypothetically make you pump out product quicker. But what my thing is the product quality? And if that's the case, where does your job go?
Okay, so it's good that you brought that up. So, there's projects that should be done digitally because it's just click and drag, drop the paint flat. But when you want to get fully detailed, these programs are just not there yet. And a lot of these artists are amazing and they can make shit happen through digital paint. But when you want that detailing, that fine line detailing, that color, it has to be done hand painted. You can't do it with the program. The program doesn't understand how to do a wash, do a brush. It just knows how to put the color there. And yeah, you can do your lines. And honestly, I can paint a straight line that may look like a straight line. It's not really a straight line, but with a computer, you make a straight line. That's a straight line.
But here's the thing about that. Human representation, nobody is symmetrical.
No.
It's not supposed to be a straight line.
Yeah.
So when you use AI and you use all these digital outlets, you're removing the human experience from it, which removes the human experience as a whole, which kind of complicates things. Is your profits up? Maybe. But is the reception of your product there?
And I think that's the biggest debate right now with companies is that, yeah, we're pumping out a lot and, we're getting more out there, but you're losing your fan base.
Agreed.
People are like, it's not as good as it could be.
Agreed.
And again, I'm not taking away from any other companies and what they do, but you can tell the significant difference between something that was digitally done and something that wasn't, And some of it looks great and some of it is phenomenal, but some of it's like, I'd rather have that done this way,
And I would argue against it because that implements an effect on your job.
100%. I'm learning how to I'll admit that right now. I'm learning how to digital paint. I'm not bad at it, but God forbid tomorrow they were like, "Hey, we're not going to hand paint anymore." I got to get good quick or I'm out.
I would unfortunately devise you learn because of that shit.
Yeah, of course.
And it's fucking sucked. It's fucking unfortunate because like I said, it removes the human experience. It removes that authenticity that when you look at something, you're like, wow. Because like I said, I like toys. I collect a lot of Japanese kaiju stuff. And there's certain practitioners in said fields that will only do, and predominantly in these niche markets, they will only sculpt by hand.
Yeah.
Only. Even if there's nuts and bolts and all this shit, you look at it, you would never imagine a human sculpted it, but they did. But they just the Japanese have that overall incredible tradition.
Absolutely.
And that quality and everything. And a lot speaks for that. When you hold a product that was completely sculpted by hand, it hits a lot different, dude. When you got somebody that was sitting there, it doesn't mean that digital sculptor ain't good because that takes its own talent.
Of course.
But it fucking ruins the human experience, in my opinion.
I'm again, like you said, I'm not taking it away from them, but it's a lot easier to click and drag something to make that shape than it is to actually sit there and actually sculpt that shape,
But here's another argument that I'm an advocate for. It's like we're talking before about LeBron James. So this kind of comes into like complete fruition is like evolution. And the goal is to make, let's say you have a child, you want to make their life easier than your life, right?
Yep.
It's the same goes on with everything, every element of existing. You want to make easier than the previous generation because it's a part of evolving. And unfortunately, evolving means that you remove a little bit of the human experience due to the AI technology and intelligence of computers today.
Evolution.
And
as
that's
you said
what
before.
It sucks, but it's like I love it, but I fucking hate it because a lot of things I can do much easier now. Let's say I wanted to make a recipe for a fucking I don't know, a chicken parmesan, right? But I wanted to make it taste like I fucking was in Tuscany.
Yeah.
And I was fucking stroking some fucking guy that was sitting there making the mozzarella fresh. You know what I mean? Like, let's just say he was sitting there stomping the grapes of the wine that he was drinking while he was making. He was hitting it with his feet. And I want to replicate that. And I asked ChatGPT
to make me that.
Can you make me a recipe for a chicken parmigiana that used the finest cheeses, the finest this? They're going to spit it back at me within seconds. Can I hate that? Is it making my life easier? Yes. But is it removing that human experience? Yes. So it's a crazy, it reminds me, that's why I love the character Darth Maul so much. Now, I'm not a Star Wars guy, but when that Darth Maul character came out, I resonated with him a lot because that double-edged fucking lightsaber is so representative of so much. It contains so much symbolism throughout what we live today. Everything is a double-edged sword. You got the good and the bad. So Darth Maul to me is like the ultimate fucking villain.
I respect it.
Would you agree?
He's one of my favorite characters.
I love him, dude. I don't watch Star Wars.
Ah, man. I mean the history of him through that, because if you're not a fan, obviously, he dies in the first one. But he doesn't, and he goes on, and then the Clone Wars, the animated series, and this,
which I didn't watch.
It's unbelievable. I mean, again, if you're not a fan, then you're not a fan. But
I'm not a sci-fi guy too much.
Yes, he is the ultimate character, but again, he's self-serving, where yeah, he was ultimately bad, but at the end of the day, he just doing his thing. You know what I mean? He ran his own crew later. You know, he had his own gang, and you know, just because he was passed up as a Sith Lord, yeah. I mean, it's cool. But yeah, I think what your point saying with all this is to a degree of a level of convenience for people. You know, yeah, I don't have to do this if this robot can do this for me or this thing could do this for me. But if you're passionate about something, you want it done by you or by, you know what I mean? Like it's a better feeling. But I think a lot of people just want their shit and they don't care how they get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you got to find balance, but sometimes I enjoy it all. That's the problem. It's like, I enjoy AI. I enjoy because dude, my wife's had sometimes like making food and like during the week, and she's like, damn, it's like, I'm kind of bored of like the chicken marsala we've been making. What can I make? Let me ask ChatGPT, what can I make that tastes good, but does this, has a little sweetness and the whole thing, and it just spits it out to her in seconds. And like, you could hate Jeff Bezos, right? Because of Amazon and how it ruined the brick and mortar.
Yeah.
But the convenience level of it is unmatched. I go into a brick and mortar now and I try to buy in person. They have nothing I fucking want. But if I go on Amazon, it'll be in my house at 7 a.m. So it's like,
it could be there that night if you order it in the morning.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, it's the balance you have to find. Do I like Jeff Bezos? Not really. But do I kinda? Yeah. So it's tough. It's like life in this day and age.
It's a give and take.
It's a give and take, and it's extremely difficult to navigate through because you love it, then you don't, and then you read all the fucking hate online. Damn, should I feel guilty for liking this because of all the ideologies that are getting thrown across me? Life now. Having a child is like, damn, like when I was growing up, I didn't have all these options, all these opinions to siphon through. Now I have so many. It's like, what is my fucking poor kid gonna do? So I gotta try to be a good enough parent to make him understand that thinking all this stuff is okay, implementing certain stuff is better. It's hard.
I quote a lot of people all the time because, you know, if somebody already said it before I ever did. But I love quoting Dave Chappelle.
Oh, the best.
And there's a kid in my job. He's 23 years old. You know, nice kid, good worker and everything. But I was like, dude, I remember a time when the phone rang and I didn't even know who was on the other line. I just had to pick it up and hello.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So everybody, it's different today. And, you know, there's so many options. And again, would we be different if we had all those then? Instagram, YouTube, probably 100%.
100%.
You know what I mean? But does it make us better or does it make us worse? Or it's evolution, you know? And we have to try to grow, I guess. Or maybe we're just stuck in our ways. I'm stuck in my ways, man. I'm fine with the way I am.
There's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
There's good and bad. What I find odd about these Chinese factories specifically, because obviously, first of all, the tariff situation is tough because that's major business for you.
Very.
There are people in those factories, you know, holding your hand, painting prototypes that you initially do the initial paint application of, and they're basically simply replicating what you did.
Yep.
Right? I would imagine if the mass production factory painters are replicating a digital printout, there's no way that the achievement of the accuracy would be the same as if they painted something from a hand sculpt of you. What I mean by that is, if I'm saying it incorrectly, to the listeners out there, we're talking about digital paint applications and physical paint applications. So a physical paint application, to the listeners that don't understand this, he's going to get a digital paint application. I mean, he's going to get a digital sculpt, rather. He's going to print it out. He's going to have it physically in his hands. It's going to be in gray, whatever resin or whatever it is, right? So then he's going to paint this figure, this gray prototype. He's going to paint it and he's going to ship it out with care to this factory in China. And the factory in China is going to open this package up. They're going to see it. They're going to go, okay, cool. This is how they want it painted. So then they're going to grab another printout of the 3D sculpt that you provided, and they're going to try to replicate it. And they're going to send, to my knowledge, they're going to send this prototype that they painted back to you, in which you would approve for mass production. Now, if you're digitally painting shit, they're not going to get this physical thing in their hands to replicate. They're going to get a printout. Now, that's a big problem. And the big problem that, now, again, this is me from the outside looking in, for me being as knowledgeable as I can be as a spectator. Screens, ink, and painters, all that stuff comes into play now. Because if you have a certain printer that can't replicate the CMYK, can't replicate this and that, they print it out on a page, you're getting it, they're getting a different color than the actual color that if you were to hand paint it on it. Am I correct in saying that?
Yes, but I'm going to interject here. The part that you're missing, and I think it's because you're not there.
Yeah.
You're 100% right, everything you're saying. But with the digital paint now, one of our jobs is we paint it on digital, and then we use what's called a Pantone book. Pantone book has all colors on it with a serial number.
I have one.
Okay.
I have one.
So what we have to do for the digital sculpt is try our hardest to match the Pantone number color with what we did digitally. And then we put it on our paper that we send our plan, our detailed plan to them, so that all they have to do is look for C483, which is this purple, and put it on there. Where a physical sculpt, they can actually see what color it is, and then they mix the color and go, okay, this color matches that color. Now, mind you, I know that seems better getting the Pantone. You're not going to get the exact color that I chose.
Of course not.
That's the biggest gripe with that.
I'm telling you, because like I said, I have that side thing called Pen&Co, and I make, when I send a proof, an art proof, to a factory, I have to pick the Pantones myself.
Yeah.
And they're never going to be exact, because CMYK and Pantones, they have an issue, especially if you're dealing with the number coding. Of course. There's a big issue. So you have to find the Pantone that matches the best to your CMYK color in Photoshop.
And you're never going to get it right.
You're never going to get it right, but you can get close. So the problem is the dialogue. So you figure that shit out. You tell them PMS, whatever the case may be, because of your Pantone wheel, which is different than the actual color that your monitor is spitting out to you, because every monitor has different pixels. So there's so many multi-layers of dysfunction here. That's the gripe that I have.
And the hardest part, I'll tell you this, is not every person sees the same color.
Bingo! That's what I'm saying. When you remove the human condition and you remove the human perception, there's a lot of fucking problems and variables that come into play. Yep. And that's a big one. And when I was sitting here thinking of when I was going to interview you, I was thinking of all these issues, and I'm like, trust me, because from my personal experience of picking Pantones, and I'm going back and forth with these factories, know the color's off, do this. And it's like, you're fucking pulling hair.
Excuse me. The hardest part too, though, is not even that, is not everybody has the same computer, the same 4K screen or something like this. I'm sitting in my office. I have an older computer, so when I'm looking at a reference, I see this purple. My coworker is like, you sure it's that color? I'm like, why? What? He goes, I don't know. I see kind of like a gray. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then we have our debate.
See?
We have our debate. And again, it's just, let's come to an agreement here. But when you send it for something like that, they're just going to go with what is said.
That's what I'm saying.
This color, and it might not be right.
That's what I'm saying. So like when I was thinking about all this shit, I'm like, how am I going to even talk about this? Because there's many levels of perception here.
Yeah.
So how do you find the happy medium? I don't think I have an answer. I don't think in present day there is an answer to it, unless the people that are mass producing your stuff have the same company monitor, the same company graphics card, etc. That's the only way.
The only thing, and I assume every company does this, but from what I know of our company is we do send somebody there. So we have a guy in China in the factories doing the quality control there, where he looks and they'll do one or whatever, and he'd be like,
wow,
okay, yeah, that's exactly what it should look like.
Wow.
So he's there because we talk to him because, obviously, again, and not to sound, and I'm not trying to be insulting, the language barrier is very tough.
Oh, it's tough, dude.
So, he's there to be that mediator to say, like, I know what Mike was trying to achieve here, or I know what Jeff was trying to achieve here. I know what they want, so this is what it is. Instead of leaving it to somebody at the factory who's just like, yeah, I guess this is it. So, so.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, how closely do you work with the license holders, sculptors, designers for each project?
Me personally, I an email away, but I leave that up to our brand managers,
the higher
ups, because they will tell them, this, that, the other. Hey, Mike, this is what they're looking for. But if I have any questions or if anything, I can easily, not to like licensors or studios.
Yeah,
I talk to Randy, my head boss, or the brand managers who are in charge, and then they'll talk to them.
Interesting.
But it's a lot of community, a lot of emailing. But
it's tons, I'm sure.
But I mean, I ask a question and I get the answers that I need. You know what I mean?
Sick.
I'll, it's again, I think the hardest part is references, because we're very intricate in the things that we do.
Yeah,
and it could be one scene of one movie that his hand goes up for 5 seconds. And there's something there, but that's it. You'll never see it again. And we're gonna paint that. And it's like, how do I get that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of times where I'll watch the movie or watch something and have to pause and be like, all right, where is it? Where is it? And I have to look for it and then try my best.
So sick.
And a lot of the studios are cool. They're like, oh, that looks awesome. And a lot of studios are like, no, that's not what it looks like at all. And it's like, well, then why don't you tell me what I'm supposed to do? So
of course, that's awesome. I have a random question for you. Are there any aggravating restrictions or limitations that are put in place on you in your work environment or your workspace with certain projects that make your life more difficult?
I don't want to say restrictions or limitations, but I want to say it gets frustrating when I'm given a project. The brand manager gives me the references, tells me, just, have fun with it. And then I'll do something and then they'll be like, oh no, this is not at all what I wanted. Wow. And it's like, well, then why don't you just tell me what you wanted? So that's where it comes back to me liking order. Tell me what you want. I'll do it this way. But where my other painters, they've been there for a while, they have their flow and they can have fun with it and they know what is to be expected. So when they take a chance on something, most of the time it works out and it's great. Other times it's a total repaint. Wow. I get mad about that because I'm like, I just wasted a whole day doing this or 2 days doing this. And I hate that. I'm like, this is a waste of time. You could have told me what you wanted. I could have done it right the first time. So I get frustrated. I get loud and angry. When the other guys are like, Mike, who cares? Just repaint it, And I'm like, yeah, but I'm wasting time. They're like, there's no rush. What are you freaking out about? But I just want to do it right, get it done the first time, boom, But accidents happen. We're human,
Yeah, of course. What dream license rather do you wish to be able to paint on? Obviously, everybody that knows you knows Big Trouble in Little China. Everybody knows that. So besides that, is there any other license that is quote unquote be your dream license?
For me personally, if I could, and I'm not gonna lie, the company that does it right now is sick. If I could do it, I would love to do it, and like a whole line from 1 till the X's. Mega Man.
Really?
That would die to be able to say I did that.
Oh yeah, what's that company that does them now?
Jada Toys.
That's it.
Unbelievable. And they're doing Street Fighter 2. We used to do Street Fighter. We did a bunch of the like Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 5, but this was before my time.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, they had a couple that were really, really, really good. Like awesome. So I was kind of mad that I missed out on that. I'm more of a video game guy. Like I love that stuff. You know, I love that shit. But like Mega Man to me would be a dream.
Wow.
I have. We work with a sister company. We have the Whiz Kids and we have Kid Robot. Kid Robot does all like the little knickknacks, cute little things. Yeah.
I was gonna bring that up. I can't believe that. I had no idea that you acquired that.
Yeah. We purchased Party City recently.
You guys own Party City.
Yeah.
The blood's rushing.
Yeah. So we had little knickknacks, and there was this cool little like Mega Man. It was a little like hard rubber Mega Man figure. It's a stupid little thing, but it was only the red and white, you know, when he has the firepower.
Yeah.
So I was bored one day, you know, on a Friday, you know, I finished my work early and I was like, you know, and I took it and I painted it blue, like the original Mega Man.
Yeah.
And it was so awesome. And I was like, God, man, I would kill.
Want that.
To do an actual figure, an articulated figure of all of them though. The originals.
Yeah, you want that.
I love Mega Man X. I mean, me and Vic.
Mega Man X is fire.
When we're hammered and we have nothing to do, we're watching. We're like, just put on Mega Man and we'll see how fast we can run through the game.
Want to play it right now?
It's the best. So I would love to just have. There'd be so many figures to be able to do with that. So that would have been a lot of fun.
Let me ask you this, man. What do you love most about toys?
Honestly, that's a really good question. You know, it's obviously the look of it, but I think now because I make money and I have money and I'm an adult and I could do what I want. Now, obviously, you know, you understand being in a relationship, getting married and a kid in the life, you got to pick and choose the times and the things you spend your money on. But because I have it, I can relive my childhood.
Bingo.
Because I'm buying all the stuff that I had and now everything is redone, you know, a newer version, this and that. But now I could say, like, I remember I had this Juggernaut, but now I have the new one. Like, I have the one that looked like it, but it's just better now because of, you know, evolution with technology and all that shit. But yeah, it's just so I could be a kid again. That's the only reason. And I play with all my toys. Like I said, I'll keep the good ones that like I know are worth still in packaging, or I'll buy two. But I love it. I just like setting them up in a thing and in my head, I'm like, oh man, like, you know, he's doing this, better, you know, bro. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's tough for me because I don't know. I have a love for the open product and I have a love for the sealed product because I appreciate it from a different angle. You know, when it's open, forget the packaging doesn't even matter anymore. It's more of a fact that you're focusing on the articulation, the paint application, the emotion and the feeling that it gives you, the nostalgic feeling, right? But then when you have one that's sealed, you appreciate the packaging more now. So it's kind of like two different perceptions. And, you know, simultaneously dealing with both of those feelings is kind of overwhelming and difficult because I have both going with, you know, coinciding with each other. But there's something about when you have a sealed product and the representation of it, the you know, because then you're diving deeper into a level of appreciation for the product design because that's a totally different element.
Everything about it.
Yeah.
Everything about it because you appreciate from start to finish.
Yes.
And especially if it is good packaging, you don't want to mess it up. You want it to, I don't want to touch this. I want this forever to be like this and look like this and appreciate it. But as you said, the one thing I love is you could take a figure and pose it in a situation that it did in a comic book or in a cartoon or in a movie. And it's like, oh my God, it came to life for me. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I have that now, you know?
That's what's cool about like the dioramas and shit, because in that sense that you're speaking, the dioramas come into play huge because you get the dioramas, you get to get the backdrop, you pose them in the way that you want, you could take a snapshot of them, whatever, but then you get the, you know, the packaging aspect of it. Speaking of, what's his name? Blaine, the guy that works with you?
Yes.
Right? He did first of all, I love Pee Wee Playhouse. Shout out Blaine, because you did a fantastic job on that shit. But when you get that, and then he incorporated all the elements of the Pee-wee's Playhouse, the door, the backdrop, all this stuff, and you get to open the package. And what I like about NECA stuff is you have the ability, especially that the one that you gave me before, the Silence of the Lambs, you get to open it and see the shit inside, the packaging on this. So it's like there's like multiple levels. It's like, oh my God, it's like
it's already animated in that sense that it's a still and all that in the packaging, but it's there. It still has
it.
I get it. No,
that's what's crazy about it. So it's kind of hard. It's like you kind of have to juggle, like, what do you like more, or do you like both, and how do you balance said appreciations? Because there's art and beauty into both aspects, like having them open and having them closed. So I kind of battle that on a daily basis.
The biggest issue, I think, is just storage. If you open something, you have more room to put things and all that. But when you have your boxes, element. You can't. You're just like, I got to just pile this somewhere or put it up, and my wall is filled.
I know. You know. Some of my favorite figures of all time, and I'm not a wrestling guy now. The original Hasbros are chef's kiss, dude. So I have a bunch that are loose, honky tonk, man, the whole nine, Jake the Snake. And then I have a bunch that are sealed, still in their package, and I have them hanging in my toy room, and they're on the slat wall, on the hooks. And like seeing them packages, like those vintage Hasbro cards are the illest.
Yeah.
You know, I even got the squirt guns. I have the entire collection of the squirt guns, like sitting on my shit. But then when you have them loose, they're cool because then you could see the action of them, the stiff fucking, you know, when you pull their arms out, they come.
Absolutely.
That shit's ill.
I think the coolest thing, and I'm always back and forth with the internet, with Instagram, with all that, you know, it caused a lot of problems. But then there's the cool part because there's great guys out there that do toy photography.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait, is that a scene from the movie or or is that a toy that, and then they put and it's like, holy shit, you know, this is awesome. And I want to say I'm trying to dabble in it. Obviously, I don't have a clue what I'm doing with that yet, but the fact that now it's even more immersive that I get to play with the toy. You know what I mean? It could take me 20, 30, 40 an hour setting up a figure just so I wanted to get the right fighting pose and then be like,
that's the best.
Yeah.
You got to link me with the fucking photographer for now, because that guy, when I walked in that building and I saw him, and that's the guy I want to talk to. Like, I knew he's just a plethora of amazingness.
Yeah,
really.
You would have a lot of fun with him.
I know I would. Just seeing it, like I said, quietly watching and seeing, like, oh, that's where that gets done. Like, it's weird when you spend when you spend a lifetime imagining something and thinking of what it was, what it is. And then when you finally get to really see the reality of it, it either makes or breaks you. And like, but it made me. Seeing that was like, whoa, like, so that's when I go to NECA Toys, I forget the website, the actual URL. But when I go to that website to pre-order something, and I get to see
NECA Online.
That's it, NECAonline.com, and I get to, I'm like, damn, the pictures from that fucking guy with the glasses on that I met a couple weeks ago, it just totally hits differently because, I don't know, like I said, for a person like me who enjoys the back end of things, seeing it from the back end, how everything works out, it just hits differently for me on an emotional level, and it makes me want to keep going to feed that beast that is within me.
Well, what's cool is that you being a fan, seeing it, and, you know, oh my God. What's cool too is, like, you know, we have deliveries come in, you know, the water guy comes in, or something's wrong with the airbrush room. So we have somebody come in, and these guys walk in, maybe not even fans, and they're like, holy shit. This is cool. You know, you might not even be a fan of toys. You might not be, but it's like, this is how it's done. This is cool. You know what I mean? It's.
I'm telling you, it was fulfilling to me in a way that I can't. I'm not really quite sure I can verbally describe. It was just something that I want to revisit. You know, that something that I need to. I want to find a way that I can involve myself somehow. Like, I think that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I'm even making sense right now. You know what I mean?
Well, I
like
mean,
I want to implant myself.
The bourbon's catching
somehow
up,
in that ethos.
The bourbon's catching up, but I get it.
I guess so.
No, I'm kidding. No, I get it. You're right.
It is.
It's awesome, man. No, I mean, and again, I can't be more appreciative of you feeling that way. And then, just, because we're boys, that it means more.
Dude, it's
because,
sick, dude.
You're a fan.
Like, I want to get involved somehow. I don't know how, but like that, seeing that shit, like when I went to work the next day, I'm like, I want to be involved in that shit somehow, whether it's for nothing. Just the fact that you know what I mean? Like, it's just fulfilling. It's soul filling. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
It's beautiful. Anyway, moving on. NECA in itself, the National Entertainment Collectibles Association, right? That we all know as NECA Toys, now owns. Well, first of all, let me say this. NECA started in 1996. Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned prior, from 1996 to 2000, it kind of did a lot of weird miscellaneous things. It wasn't even on the radar for most people. We're coming up next year on the 30th anniversary of NECA, of the National Entertainment Collectibles Association. Now, I don't know, but if I were a spectator, which I am, and an intellect in the slightest, I'm not a fucking dummy to say that there's some shit coming. There's some grandiose shit coming. That word for you again.
I want to get that like tatted on my arm.
Coming next year for NECA. And to say that my dick is fucking hard, I couldn't. It's beyond hard. I'm talking, if you could take every hard molecule on the universe and bring it into one space that's about a couple inches big and just combine it there and solidify it and know that this is coming. I know. I know you probably can't say, but what the fuck is coming next year?
It's hot. I mean, we always pumping out. I'm not saying because I work for the company, but we're pumping out a lot of cool shit. And it gets better and better. But again, it has I
don't want to hear. Listen, this is the 30th anniversary. I know I know how branding works. I know how rollouts work. There is a fucking rollout coming that is going to make people's eyes roll in the back of their head. I know this. I know you can't say.
Yeah, you were there, but
give me a wink.
You were
wink at the camera.
You were there,
please.
You were there.
I'm coming.
You were there, so you saw it. I mean, obviously, my lips are sealed because we want to, not shock. We want to surprise people and amaze people what we're doing, and it's better as a mystery.
Part of my mind. When I sit there and I relax and I grasp the mushroom taser. I gotta hold on. I gotta put on the sky cam real quick. Let me take a sip.
That's a new one.
Oh, you never heard that?
Mushroom taser,
you haven't been around me enough.
The one from what was it? Varsity Blues, like purple-headed mushroom slinger.
That's bullshit. The mushroom taser and the salmon pie. All right, so as I grasp the mushroom taser, I just imagine a world where there's going to be some anniversary shit dropping that is going to make people's wigs flip. Mm-hmm. Randy, come talk to me. I think me and Randy, prior to that year dropping in December, we got to give everybody a Christmas episode. There it is.
Christmas episode.
Randy Falk. A Christmas episode revealing what's coming for the 30th anniversary 2026. I'm putting that in the universe right now. Randy, hit my line. I think that's what it's going to be.
I like it. I like it.
You like it?
I could be your guy inside.
I think it's going to be a crazy year. 2026, 30th anniversary of one of the most important toy companies in our existence. Just imagine. I can't even. Real toys, fucking cult classics coming out, redone, redos, paint applications. Come on. I mean, like, think about what could come. I mean, I don't. I could only imagine what could come from that. 30 years is such a milestone for such an important company that has touched the lives of thousands, if not millions of people across the globe. 30 years.
I was in sixth grade.
Sixth grade.
And now I work there.
I was 10 years old.
Look at you now.
Sauce talk, baby. I was 10 years old, and then now I'm going to visually... Listen, there's a couple of moments in life that I hope I'm alive for. This is one of them, which for sure. The other one is the unveiling of the Nickelodeon time capsule, which is what, 2042? Is that? I forget.
I'm amazed that you know
These
that.
two. These two. That one and that. Randy Falk. I mean, it's to say it's destiny is an understatement. You know what I mean? I mean,
that's
I need to be there for the unveiling. I need to be there. Let's make the world premiere on the Sauce Talk.
I could do that.
It might not happen, but I like to put things in universes.
Hey, you got the inside guy here,
I mean, come on.
I'm related to him in a way. So,
All right, look. NECA owns many companies that I had no idea of. Mm-hmm. Until present day when I was doing my little bit of research regarding this podcast. I had no idea they owned Kid Robot. I had no idea they owned a bunch of other divisions.
Yeah.
There's many.
Ruby's, the costume shop.
Really?
Yep.
See, Whiz Kids, right? Yep. That's another division. Like, yep. I had no idea. I had a question. So obviously these companies prior to NECA's acquisition were established on their own right, so they had their own factories, warehouses, and stuff. Do they remain in those said places? And if they don't, are they all operating out of Hillside, New Jersey, or
for at least my knowledge, I know that Whiz Kids and Kid Robot all work out of our warehouses and our stuff like that.
What about Kid Robot?
Kid Robot as well. Whiz Kids and
really?
Kid Robot. Ruby's they have their own factories, they have their own stuff. Like it's its own entity, but under the NECA umbrella with
Gotcha.
most of these companies. But Whiz Kids is you were there. We have our studio, and literally across the hall is Whiz Kids. So they're there. Kid Robot, we have the people that work, remote, but everything goes through our warehouses.
Interesting.
Blanking on the other name of the other company.
Well, we had a lot to drink, so don't be bashful.
Yeah,
it's all right.
No,
it's good for your health.
I'm blanking a little bit now.
I'm blanking all night. Don't worry about it.
But yeah,
it's crazy how they
companies.
Acquired.
Yeah,
it's like fucking Thanos just acquiring stones.
No, I mean he, our owner, he's a businessman. He knows, when it's time what to grab, and he does it.
That guy's a savage. Dude. What's his name?
Joel Weinshanker.
Man, that guy gets in here, forget about it. He'd be singing like a fucking tool.
He owns 51% of Graceland.
The fact that I really need to talk to this guy is an understatement.
That's a tall order. Getting that guy here.
Now listen, that guy,
he doesn't talk to anybody.
I'm sure if I gave him a good night of whining and dining and gave him the best Italian meal he's ever had in his life,
it wouldn't even compare to the way he lives life.
I like that. I enjoy that.
He lives.
I enjoy the fact that you shut me down.
He lives.
That makes my dick
I'm
hard.
sorry. I just know that's a hard no.
I like the hard nose. I like hard nose.
Randy, I think I could get in here. We promised him some.
That'd be good. He's got Yester toys. I'm really interested in everything. Listen, the one thing I noticed when I went to NECA is his office. Mm-hmm. And he loves G.I. Joe.
Oh, yeah.
I could tell. It's all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
It's all over the place.
Yeah. Big fan.
It's cool.
Big
I like
fan.
that.
Yeah. He just loves toys. He knows his
all
shit.
that matters.
He knows his shit. That's why NECA does as well as we do because of him. He knows his shit.
Listen, the one thing that I realize is no business is gonna go as far as it does unless you have passion and love. If you don't have that, I mean, you can go off statistics and stuff like that, but it's just the stuff that really shines is the passion. You know?
Well, like you said, a lot of these companies are just pumping out stuff just because. We'll pick up this size, we'll make this up. But it's like you could tell you guys don't really care about it.
Roger.
Where the stuff that we do, there's a passion behind all of it. He likes it.
Right.
He wants this. They want a lot of our guys do have a lot to say. Hey, I really like Golden Girls. We're gonna do action figures of that. Now, mind you, there's a lot of people in the world that don't, but there's a lot of people that do. And the fact that we did it right, it sells.
That's what it's all about. It's about doing it right.
Yeah.
That's it. Really. It's about It's about doing it right. Here, I have a pretty loaded question, as most of my questions are pretty loaded tonight.
I was gonna say, wait, the question, or you're asking a question because you're loaded?
I guess it's both at the same time, so it's double loaded. I had a question regarding sales that it might be above your head, it might not be, but I figured let me shoot the shot. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna put the time frame into 3 periods: pre-pandemic, pandemic, and post-pandemic. So pre-pandemic, I would assume that NECA sales largely, for the most part, came from your wholesale sales. Your comic book stores. You had, for a small period of time, Toys R Us. You had Toys R Us exclusives that folded because Toys R Us diminished, and the whole nine. And I have some of all that stuff. And then you had the pandemic stuff. Most of that stuff was due to online sales, right? And then you got post-pandemic. So now you still have online sales, but then you have post-pandemic wholesale stuff where the comic book stores were able to buy again, this and that, stuff like that. My interest is in how did it affect sales for you statistically? So pre-pandemic, I would assume you were heavier on the wholesale market. Then pandemic and post-pandemic were a lot heavier on the online sales. And since you guys sell your own toys on your website, which would mean the maximum profit margins, how much of those sales really trumped the wholesale market? And if they did at all?
Fantastic question from a fantastic interviewer. I'm going to plead the fifth on that one because honestly, I
don't know. It's a pay grade.
I will say, obviously, pre-pandemic, I mean, there was no troubles. People were ordering nonstop, and there was no problems, no issues. Pandemic, it was harder to get places, harder to buy things. So obviously, the online store did great. Post, I mean, I think it all comes down to the products themselves. What's selling, what's not. Our large things are the Walmarts, the Targets. I mean, because it's easier to get things there. More people shop there. The comic book stores and stuff like that. They only order a certain amount. And because of everything that happened, they're not ordering as much from anybody. Because they're trying to build their businesses back up from everything that had happened.
Yeah.
But as for that, honestly, that's kind of over my head on that kind of stuff.
I just figured I'd ask because, that stuff kind of interests me.
Yeah, no, I get it. I mean, I wish I could be more helpful with that, but,
I would assume that's something more for Randy to ask.
I'm just, what everybody in the office likes to call us. I'm just a paint monkey.
Yeah.
You put the thing in front of me and I just do what I'm told, I'll
save that question for Randy when he comes through. I'll say that for him.
He'll have answers for you. I'll tell you that.
I'm sure. I'm actually really interested on the birth of the company and stuff because he was there for the early years.
So, knowing Randy as long as I have, given that married my sister and everything, but from what I know is that he worked. He was a teacher before anything.
What subject?
He was an English teacher.
Wow.
And I guess he just but he was always into music. He used to be a WSOU DJ, for school and stuff he met all,
I'm interested in that.
That's how he's big time into music. Definitely.
Oh, I love music.
But, he got into it. I believe, he was working at McFarland.
My boy Snow used to work there, so he probably knows
absolutely.
Carmen.
Absolutely. So he, I guess, whatever the reasonings were, he fell out of that and he was picked up by NECA, and basically everything he knew and his passion in toys alone, but then being at McFarland, seeing the talent out there, basically told Joel, hey, I'll work for you and I'm going to do all this, but I want my team. And he went out there and he handpicked every guy that's been inside of NECA, and that's why NECA is the way it is. And I don't know if this is going to cause problems or not, but, he handpicked a lot of guys that were unhappy at McFarland. And they left McFarland to come work at NECA. And a lot of those guys still work there today.
I love that shit. That shit's great.
He has, that's what I said. And not to diss Randy in any way, saying that he's not artistic, but he's good at knowing who is. And he chose his people wisely. And that's why.
No, I can 100,000% relate to that because me personally, even my logo was done by Sean Taggart, who did the Jerky Boy. I'm a good curator, and there's an art in being a curator. There's totally an art in that. So even though you don't physically do the stuff,
you know what
you have to have that taste.
You want to know. You see it before it's done.
Exactly.
But you just don't know how to get there, but you know the people that can.
Exactly. So there's a big art in doing all that stuff. So
yeah.
I got to talk to that guy. I think it'd be a fun time, be a good time, especially to learn the history of NECA as a whole, because especially since he got involved at such an early time, it'd be fun. Anyway, on a personal level for you, what's in store for the future of Mike Puzzo? Is there any personal projects you're working on? Is there anything? I know the problem is you can't really hint on future things that NECA is going to do.
Yeah, I can't do that.
So it's kind of hard for me to even ask that question.
I mean, hey, if there's a need for me, I'll keep, rocking and rolling with NECA. Obviously everything that's going on in our country, it's kind of putting a hindrance on things. Not that there's any kind of scare yet, but you never know. Things could go really up, things could go really down. Obviously being in the world now, I would love to do, not to take away from anybody, NECA or anything. Yeah, if I knew how to digitally scope, or if I had a friend, I would love to fuck around and do something personal, do something that we created.
Yeah.
Just to see, just to be oh, this looks cool, but I think that, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. But dude, like I said, I'm the happiest I've ever been, where I'm at.
God bless.
Doing what I'm doing,
God bless, man.
And when I can spend a Saturday night at my boy's house, ripping bourbon and high noons, and talking about work.
That's the best, man.
You can't ask for anything better than that.
Well, listen, man, I really had a good time learning about the toy industry, learning about what you do as a whole. If you want, you can plug your socials to the public. And
I tried. I made my own Instagram. I have my own Instagram page, which is public. It's Puzzo, right? I think that's it.
What is it? M Puzzo?
No, it's at it's ITS Puzzo.
That's ITZ Puzzo, right?
P-U-Z-Z-O.
ITZ P-U-Z-Z-O?
No, ITS. It's Puzzo.
ITS
P-U-Z-Z-O. When I'm out, you'll see me out. You'll be like, oh, it's Puzzo,
I think you need to share more of your personal work on that.
So I tried to do that. I created a Instagram page for my artwork, But the problem is, I'm just too fucking lazy, and I don't want to post anything and write captions and all that. I think I put up like 6. It's at Puzzo and like
Puzzo art.
No. Pooz, because that's like the nickname. Pooz with _art. Because my fiance was like, you need to come up with like something that flows off the tongue, and I was like, kind of like Mozart, but it's Pooz art. So I tried that.
I love it.
I tried it, but like I said, I'm just way too lazy.
Fresh Pooz.
Just to put more pictures. I honestly would hire somebody, just be like, here's all my stuff I've done for the last 5 years. Just make me a page, because I don't want to do it.
You're the fucking best, dude.
I'm just too lazy. So I just put all my stuff sometimes on my page, but
So you go visit that. I think you should just put more of like after the toys come out, because you can't share them prior.
Of course.
Start posting more of
You're
your
right.
shit.
You're right. But here's the thing. A part of me, obviously, I love when, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. You did that. But at the same time, I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of like an asshole move to be like,
No.
that's mine.
No.
Because it's not. Because it's a team of guys that did that.
Doesn't matter.
You
did the paint app.
Yeah, but
you did the paint. Bro, your boy Blaine's out there blazing. Hi, Blaine. He's blazing.
Yeah.
Posting the whole layouts, the fucking, you got to do that too,
You're
brother.
right. I mean, no, he everybody says like, just to show your stuff, just to show your work, you know what I mean? Just so that people know that you can do this.
You got to proverbially show your cock. That's it.
Wow. I'm sure there's plenty of pictures out there somewhere. Let's just say I could never be a president of a company.
Well, listen, I'm going to say on that note, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
You're
dude.
a gemstone, and this is fucking awesome. I can't wait to show everybody what it's like to be a toy painter.
As long as I'm Baby Billy gemstone for you, you know what I mean?
Ooh, I love it.
Little Bible bonkers.
You're the best. I love you.
Love you, pal.